Hi everybody, welcome to Dudacon. I'm Paige Hobart. I'm an SEO manager at Unily Internet, and I'm very excited to welcome you to the second edition of Duda's 3-day online conference. This is designed to really help propel agency growth, and you're in for a series of 8 value-packed professional sessions led by top industry experts and agency leaders, including the latest industry updates, trends, live clinics, demos, fireside chats, and more. So it's absolutely packed, and I'm so excited to be hosting the first session today with Andy and Karen. Just some housekeeping before we crack on. Please let us know where you're from. I can already see some great comments in the chat. We've got Ontario, California, Liverpool, some great places in the chat. Thank you all for joining us. Each segment today is going to consist of about a 20 to 30 minute presentation. We'll then have time for Q&A until the hour is up. I will be finishing dead on the hour, so I'm going to whistle through this bit so we can crack on. Please pop any questions you have into the chat as soon as possible, because what I'll do when the Q&A starts is start from the beginning. So the earlier you get your question in, the higher the chance that we'll actually get round to it. So do let us know. They are being recorded, these sessions, so you will be able to watch back later as well. So now, without further ado, I'd like to kick off our first session, Boost Client Website CVR with Ultimate SEO Audit. We have an amazing presentation for you in this session, and we'll be doing some live auditing too. I'm going to hand over to the fabulous Karen to introduce herself before handing over to Andy to do his intro, and then jump us straight into the presentation. So Karen, please take it away.
Hi, I'm Karen Hopper. I am the Associate Director of Performance Strategy at Razorfish, where I'm currently leading CRO efforts for Citibank, which is very fun. And I've spent about 10 years building direct marketing programs for organizations of all sizes. And I'm so excited to do some live auditing today with Andy. Hand it over to you.
Thank you for joining us, Karen. It's good to see you, my old friend. And it's just wonderful to have both of you because we've got an SEO and a conversion pro. I'm Andy Crestodina. I'm one of the co-founders here at Orbit Media. Orbit's a web development company. It's a 50-person team. We're in Chicago, and this is year 21. So I've been here since the beginning. So I've done 21 years of SEO and website planning. I've been part of the planning process for a very large number of website projects, probably between 500 and 1,000. We do 55 sites a year on average, and they're mostly pretty complex sites. We redesign a lot of high-ranking websites, sites with pretty fancy stuff and nice, high-end requirements. So I'm a bit obsessed with how people find websites and obsessed with the psychology of visitors and why people do and don't take action. Excited to be here.
Thank you, Andy. We'll just wait for the presentation to come up and we'll crack straight on. I'm very excited.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, we can all see this now. Be a dual threat marketer. Anything times 0 is 0. So all the visitors in the world without a conversion rate, no leads generated. 100% conversion rate with no traffic, no leads generated. So I want us all to pay some attention. It's a good way to kind of start this event, and thrilled to be here at Dudacon because we're going to talk both about the cheese and the mousetrap, the traffic and the conversions, search optimization and conversion optimization, right? The Paige and the Karen sides of things. So big picture, the goal of digital marketing very, very broadly is to bring a visitor from a traffic source all the way through to the thank you page. That's almost always the definition of success, or at least it is in the way that analytics works. So that's more or less what we're doing here. And so you can see that there's a lot of things that are required there. If you're an SEO like me, then you're really thinking, of course, how to bring the visitor from Google to a thank you page. I'm going to start by recommending that we start at the end of the process. I think it's proper to begin conversion optimization from the later links in the chain, because if a later link in the chain is broken, nothing else helps, right? There's no amount of traffic that you can drive to overcome, a bad form at the end, or a weak call to action. So this is the way that I recommend thinking about digital more generally. Often the higher value, the higher ROI activities are spent at the very bottom of the funnel. Start at the bottom of the funnel and then go up. Right, to the last link. Conversion's a chain if we're going to fix the weak links in the chain. So that's my format. That's my promise for you today. I'm going to give each of you practical takeaways that you can go apply immediately, starting at the end. A quick bit of advice about a contact form. This is the money page, right? This is the page at which the person is ready to take action. What's the true story in the life of the visitor to this page? they're ready to raise their hand, right? They click that link because they think that they maybe need your help. And you can write a nice piece of copy to go at the top. This one's not bad. Tens of thousands of people use our products every day. If you're thinking about this, we're here to help. We redesigned that page. Compare to this copy. You're about to learn how 20,000 consumer packaged good professionals manage 10 billion in trade spend. See, I'm starting with evidence, making it sound more credible. Just tell us a bit about yourself. No big deal. Just tell us a bit about yourself and we'll be in touch when? Within 24 hours. We've got more logos. We've got a simple form. We've got the face of the rep that you might talk to. Big difference. If that works for you, that data will show up. Improvements to the contact form. I'm going to use analytics throughout because I'm a data-driven marketer and I encourage us all to be. If that works, then you'll see that in the funnel visualization report in Google Analytics. That's where it appears. And if you're already ready to transition for the big switch in July next year to Google Analytics 4, this is where you'd see that report. It's a path exploration. We're sharing the slides. I'm not going to go into deep dive about analytics or how to set these things up. But looking at this slide, you should be able to emulate the report. I've kind of highlighted everything that you would need to do to be able to do this, whichever tool. In other words, every idea you have in marketing is in fact just a hypothesis. Go take an action and then measure the impact, and you can confirm or reject the hypothesis. And good framing up for all of us, Paige and Karen clearly think it this way as well. What is a best practice? It's just a good hypothesis. They're not rules. Best practices are, in fact, hypotheses, and I want to show you the reports that you can use to kind of validate the change as effective or not. Next link in the chain, the call to action, right? The percentage of visitors who click on the call to action to go to the thank you page is going to make a difference for you. So really, why do people click on things? This is a really important question. Why does anybody click on anything? It's because they've done a split-second cost-benefit calculation in their mind, and they've concluded that the benefit exceeds the cost. That's how you get someone to click. In an inbox, in a social stream, in a search results page, no matter where, right? On a web page, on a service page. People don't click things until they've decided that the benefits exceed the cost. In other words, we need to get someone to click. We need to make the R in the ROI calculation, the R bigger or the I smaller. How does that work? Well, instead of just saying do this thing, say do this valuable thing or do this easy thing. Karen, jump in if you've got any notions on this. Tell me if you agree. Contact us is not a call to action? I'm
correct.
Thank you. Okay. Wasn't sure. It's an opportunity to convert, but it's not a strong verb. Check availability and wait list. Ooh, sounds valuable. Schedule a time. You're not spending money. Just schedule a time to chat with an associate. Sounds easy. So there you can see what I'm trying to do here, Karen.
Yeah, make it low key and also very action oriented.
Yeah.
Verbs.
Low risk. Yeah, it's like not a high psychological commitment, right? Make the I seem small, the R big or the I small. That's how to get people to act. And then I have this. This is from Ali Gardner at Unbounce. The kicker, we can find a time within 24 hours. Specificity correlates with conversion. Think about that. Write that down. Specificity correlates with conversion. We're going to get into that more in a bit. Also, I think faces in your calls to action increase the visual prominence of that part of the page. And also, as we saw a minute ago, it kind of implicitly suggests that you're going to talk to that person. It sort of answers a question. If that worked for you, if you improve your calls to action and the change worked, you'll see that in Universal Analytics in your navigation summary. Just go to the home page, click the navigation summary tab. You'll see it right there. The click-through rate to everything. We should know. Good marketers know. Veteran, data-driven, conversion pros know their click-through rates for their calls to action. That's a big deal, right? And it's another path exploration inside GA4 if you choose to switch to GA4. No pressure. Whenever you're ready, the slides are here. You're going to get them, and you can just emulate that exact report. The service page. This is really where the rubber hits the road. This is a really, really important page. So I'm going to call back to some research done by Jacob Nielsen from the Nielsen Norman Group, nngroup.com, of course, usability research experts. They reported that the #1 reason why people don't take action on websites is findability. There's some missing information. Something's not there. It's not answering a question. The page is failing to answer a question or address an objection. Ironically, fancy design is actually a reason for failure. Interesting, right? So here again, our job is to make clarity bigger or confusion smaller. It's to answer questions. To do that well, we kind of need to understand our audience. This is why the first step in building great websites is to do qualitative research and talk to stakeholders. Talk to stakeholders. If you don't know the buying decisions, if you don't know the objections of your target audience, you're not likely to convert. So here are some of the questions and I've been to a ton of conversion optimization conferences. This is the kind of stuff you'll see there all the time. These are questions that you can ask of your audience, of your prospects, of your current customers, to understand how better to write the page, right? Design is not the primary factor in the conversion rates of websites. It's the copy, it's the writing, it's how well the page understands the information needs of the visitor. How well does the page emulate a sales conversation, right? So when you find out from what the audience needs, right? What's the true story in life of the visitor? Take me back. I'm going to get into the mic. Take me back to that moment when you first realized you needed help. What else did you try and what didn't you love about it? Starting out, what was the biggest challenge you're trying to solve? Prioritization. I need to know their needs, right? If they've got 4 big questions, I need to know the order so I can construct my page accordingly. What can you do now or can you do better that you couldn't do before? When evaluating options, what were your priorities, right? What was the most important thing to you? Okay, here's the secret to conversion, basically. Conversion copywriting is the key to success on these pages, and your audience can write better copy than you can. So when you ask your client, what's the most important thing, and they give you their answers, well, it was security, then scalability. Now you know how to structure the page. Use the words they use and put them in the order in which they are the most important to that visitor. What was the problem you're trying to solve? We wanted insights, not just dashboards. Now I know how to write the page. What can you do now that you couldn't do before? Oh, don't have to run that damn report every time. Stop running the same reports again and again. See, the next visitor is going to feel like, wow, this website's kind of reading my mind. This is the game. This is the most important factor in my experience. I'm watching Karen to see if she's going to, what she thinks. It's not, Karen, just give me like a general weigh in on this a little bit. What's more important to converting a visitor? Is it copy and clarity, or is it like fancy UX and design?
Copy and clarity every time. Ugly websites convert. Like if they're well written, that's the game.
That's when I try to emphasize this to clients and attendees and anyone who listens. We don't go to websites to see how pretty they are. That's not what your visitor's looking for. People go to websites with information needs. Go look at your own. I know you're a data set of one. I'm a data set of one. It's anecdotal, but go to your browsing history and ask yourself why you didn't take action on those websites. You can also talk to your reps and ask, what questions are you just sick and tired of answering? If you ask the question that way, your sales reps are likely to give you a better answer. And then put that answer on the page. So when I talk to my top salesperson and I ask, what do people keep asking you? Oh, everybody keeps asking if they can cancel their contract. Well, what do you tell them? Of course, you can cancel anytime. Read the contract. You're not locked in. Damn it, I didn't put that on the web page. That's the job. That's the job of the conversion copywriter, is to address objections and to answer questions. That's the reason you have this page. That's the reason they're on this page. It's not to say what you want to say. It's to say what they came to hear. But now we're going to say what we want to say. Now we're going to add evidence to support our answers. Okay. You can add statistical data like this site. We did a site. You don't have to scroll to see they're legit. Like they're differentiated at the top of the fold, above the fold on the home page, right? So you can see how that would add. There's no question this is like a serious company. Testimonials, though, are also very powerful unless they're done badly. This one I think has some issues. The big text is vague. Remember, specificity correlates with conversion. If they'd put the quote as the biggest text, that might have helped. Testimonial is actually boring. That's not a real person. They stole my picture. This is ridiculous. And they put them on a separate page. I'm going to argue today that testimonials should go on every page. Visitors rarely go to testimonials pages. It's just not likely to be a page they're going to ever see. On lots of sites, testimonials like the 31st, on this site, the testimonials are the 31st most popular page. Why would you put your most compelling, strongest evidence, right? Your third-party endorsement on the 31st most popular page? Put the testimonial next to the marketing claim that it supports. Put evidence next to the marketing claim that it supports. You don't put all of your answers here and all of your evidence over there. The visitor's not going to float around and piece the story together themselves. This is from our site. That's an example of a testimonial. Look at the biggest text. It is compelling, right? The visual hierarchy aligns with my messaging priority. Every page has a visual hierarchy. Every scroll depth has a visual hierarchy, whether it's deliberate or not. Look at every scroll depth on every page and ask yourself if the most compelling thing is also the most prominent thing. That is so key. I'm going to repeat that. I want to say this slowly. I want us all to think about this carefully. Look at any scroll depth on any web page and ask yourself if the most compelling thing at that scroll depth is also the largest thing, the thing closest to the top, the most contrasting thing, the thing with the most white space around it. In other words, the thing with the greatest visual prominence. If the most compelling text is tiny at the bottom, at that height, the big text is vague, not ideal. So there's two kinds of web pages, piles of unsupported marketing claims, and we're going to do live website reviews and see quite a few. And we're going to see pages that are filled with evidence, right? Lawyers don't go to trial without putting someone in the witness box. Why do marketers keep making web pages without testimonials or data? By the way, the goal is not to have testimonials. The goal is to have evidence to support your claims.
And jumping in on the testimonial part, just one more thing.
Please.
Just think about how you make decisions. Are you going to make a decision based on an ad that you see, even if it's the best Instagram ad you've ever seen? Or are you going to believe your friend that has told you about like their wonderful experience with the product? Like that's the value of social proof. It's that humans listen to other humans, and they have a deep distrust of marketing of any kind. And so the more you can put a different face on your marketing, the better.
Thank you. It's in other words, another way to say that sometimes it would be to say, okay, your site is filled with messages, but who are the best messengers for those messages? Your target audience is often the best messenger. So when you put think of it this way, the quotes are the most powerful key on your keyboard. Put quotes around something and it feels different. Social proof. You're triggering the conformity bias. Right? We all have cognitive biases, and the bandwagon effect is very powerful, and people are very likely to do what other people do. Yeah, just thank you, Karen. Watch your own buying behavior. We're all very jaded and cynical, right? I've seen it. And I don't know if it's a negative, but it's boring. It's just expected. We're number one. We're the best. Let your audience say some of those messages, and it suddenly feels like, you turn your normal marketing message into, when you say it, it's marketing. When they say it, it's social proof.
Yeah, reviews with images on Amazon was the best thing ever. I'm always going like, okay, yeah, but what did it look like? What did it look like when it arrived?
What did it really look like when a professional wasn't taking a picture that's perfectly studio lit?
Yeah, that it just feels more authentic. It's there's other examples of that where the authentic thing is more compelling than the super polished thing. We're gonna look at sites with like gorgeous stock photos, which don't feel authentic at all. I once actually did analysis on an Amazon page, and because I'm a nerd, measured the pixel height, and 50% of the pixel height on Amazon pages is social proof. Maybe it's true. Half of our pages should be evidence. Maybe that's the main thing. Everything that's not evidence on these pages, we're going to review some together. The evidence is often the only differentiation on the page. Everything else is just boring copy anybody could have written. Okay, I'm getting fired up, Paige. Wow, it's like early in the day. We're going for it. Okay, so ask yourself, how many unsupported marketing claims are on your homepage? It's like a game. Count the number of unsupported marketing claims you're making, and then ask yourself why you didn't add evidence to support those. I've got some slides in here. We're sharing the deck, like my little cheat sheets for elements that should appear on pages. Quick visual credibility is we're going to see that too. I'm just sharing. I put this in there because we're sharing the slides. I'm not going to read every one of these. Meaningful subheads, though, I want to pay it. I want this is like a pet peeve of mine, or like an easy takeaway. The subheads. Look at that. Our solutions? Come on. I can't think of a more boring and vague word. Solutions? The best words are short and direct. The worst words are long and vague. Solutions is a long, vague word. It could mean anything. It could apply to any industry. Is it plumbing solutions or enterprise, ERP solution? Like it's a missed keyword opportunity. It's a waste of pixels. I'm kidding. Look at these. Okay. Our products, insights, ideas, our customers. Really? This is a company that makes baking ingredients. Let's try that again. Our baking and pastry products. SEOs should be applauding. Ideas and insight, new ideas from inside our bakery. Our customers. Actually, I read that paragraph below that tiny text there. It said they've been around for 100 years. All I did was in my suggestion here, made the biggest text also the most compelling text, right? Take the most compelling thing and increase its visual prominence. If the most compelling thing on your page is the smallest thing on the page, ask yourself why you weren't deliberately managing a visual hierarchy. Sadly, it's not uncommon. Okay, if that worked, I'm going to say that just shows up in your overall conversion rates, right? Go look. By the way, if you have an active content marketing program, it'll push down your overall conversion rates. So you can easily make a segment to exclude people who started their visit on a blog post. Now you're just looking at your commercial intent visitors. We'll talk about that. And by the way, that's how to make a segment. I've made that just to share the slide. You're going to get the slides. And here's what it looks like in GA4. There are no segments in GA4. There are filters. what's the same, basically the same thing. Okay. Oh, and by the way, GA4 doesn't calculate conversion rates that I've found yet. You have to kind of divide the number of conversion events by the number of unique like session start events, like which are sort of like landing page visits. Okay, next, the site structure itself. We know there are 3 types of intent. Every phrase you've ever searched for on Google is one of 3 types of phrases: no, do, or go, as in informational, commercial, and navigational. And those things align with the level of awareness the person has. In each moment, we are problem aware or solution aware, or actually we're already brand aware. So examples of those are things like, can a microscope see cells? That person has very low intent, right? Microscope repair Chicago. That person needs a service, right? Some phrases are a service. Science plus, that person's already brand aware. So there's no, do, and go, and no phrases are actually 80% of all queries. I bring this up because I want to make sure that we have sitemaps that have lots of pages targeting lots of phrases. And so here's my little diagram. Homepage targets the navigational query automatically. You should rank #1 for your brand name. But also, that's the page that could target the most competitive commercial intent key phrase, right? Like the business category that you're in. The commercial, then the specific pages inside are the pages that will let you get that target the more specific commercial intent queries. And the blog is where you target all the information intent queries. And you can have lots of off nav pages, by the way, that don't appear in your main navigation, but target other commercial intent queries. So this is the idea. This is a search optimized sitemap. We got lots of submissions for site reviews, and some of those had like a page called services. I would never, ever make a page called services. Nobody's searching for services. Specificity in this case correlates with traffic, because if you have a page per service, if you have one page for all of your services, that page is not optimized for anything. It will never rank. You missed a big SEO opportunity. So each of these pages targets a different phrase. Each phrase has different intent. That's basically my message here. And then after you make the page, we have to make a sincere attempt at making an excellent page. I'm not going into deep like keyword research steps here, but if I say you need to be in one of the top 10 pages, just do a search for the phrase. For this phrase, there are 69 million pages, and here are the top 10. That's the level of competition. Seriously, if you wonder why you don't rank, look at your page and ask yourself, did you make one of the top 10 pages on the internet for the phrase? That's what the SEO should be doing every day, right? We're not trying to trick a robot into getting us to rank. We're trying to make one of the best pages on the internet and indicate its relevance so that Google can show it, right? To help Google help people find it by making an awesome page. That means it's detailed, and that means it's keyword focused, and that means it uses all the related phrases, all the semantically related phrases, okay? So this is SEO. If you're looking for the semantically related phrases, I've got some slides in here for that. Google's going to suggest them to you. This is how you should expand upon your page, right? Also, by the way, if you look down and see what Google bolded, those are also semantically related phrases. Incorporate those into the page. This is how you can expand upon your page to make the best page at one of the top 10 pages on the internet for the topic. That's SEO in a nutshell. And by the way, it's easier than ever. Google's telling you what people want to know. Does your page answer the questions that Google suggested, that Google showed? There's tools for this, by the way. Market Muse is one. It's a tool that I've used before to help me figure out what the semantically related phrases are by analyzing the other sites. In the end, it's called semantic SEO because we're not just targeting the key phrase. That's like what junior SEOs do, or what SEOs did 10 years ago. Target the key phrase, put it in these 3 places. No, we want to make a great page by targeting the topic. Target the topic and not just the key phrase. And when that works, you're going to see the traffic. This is Google Analytics, and I'm tracking month over month traffic, right? This is showing me how much traffic I had previous month versus now. From what source? Organic. That's a segment. And to which page? I'm on the landing pages report. And here's what that same report looks like in GA4. Again, by analyzing this slide, pull it up next to your GA4 and you can emulate the same exact report. It's really not that fancy. You got this, right? You got this, people. It's not that hard. And so when you rank for one of these things, check Search Console. A page that ranks for anything, the primary key phrase, should rank for dozens or hundreds of other closely related phrases. That's how you know you did good semantic SEO. That's how you know you spread out your meaning across the broader topic and didn't just overly focus on one specific phrase. It's not just about one specific phrase anymore. It's about making a great page that answers all the related questions, touches on all the related subtopics. It's about the semantics and the visitor's intent. Okay, visitor, the page likes that. that's what we should be doing, right? And we could talk much more about that. And you're at a conference, you're going to get tons of that. There's going to content audit session coming up next, right? We're going to go much deeper into this. You got a lot in store today. Okay, email signups. We're doing content marketing. We get visitors. We want those visitors to subscribe. When they subscribe, now we don't need Google in between us and our audience. We don't need LinkedIn or Facebook in between us and our audience. Email signups are gorgeous because it's disintermediation. You can talk to your client directly, right? They wanted an email. But look at how bad this email signup call to action is. Why would anybody do that? Nobody's going to do that. This is the #1 like billion-dollar company in the category of like senior living here in the US, like big business. Stay up to date? What? Up to date for what? Specificity correlates with conversion. That doesn't say anything. So why would, ask yourself, look at every one of your calls to action. Why would anybody do that thing? Good calls to action to subscribe. Give people a strong promise. I made this one, it's fake. Build strong castles and forts with one simple weekly tip. That's a promise. Every call to action is a promise. And it's visually prominent. I've talked a lot about visual hierarchy. It's in a different color. It's got it knocked out, right? It's dark, it's light on dark. Maybe it's a pop-up, or maybe it's on every page, or maybe it's a sticky footer, or it's large at the top of the blog landing page, and proof, social proof again. So those are the 3 P's of email signup boxes. Ask yourself, look at your email signup forms critically, and ask yourself if you've done everything possible to maximize the conversion rate from blog reader to email subscriber. While we're here, let's also optimize our navigation. Do you know what people click on? We did this a minute ago. A lot of people have big menus, and we're going to look at some examples of sites that have big menus. Just go to the homepage, click on navigation summary, and ask yourself, is that what you expected people to do? I can tell you crazy stories. The tiniest link in the bottom is the #1 click. What? Huge, big, colorful, flashing buttons at the top never get clicked? What? It's really, we make these things hoping that our visitors will interact with them in the way that is profitable for us. But what they'll do whatever they want, right? You can actually see a lot of back button activity in these sometimes. This is how to optimize a page to optimize your pages to get better, to guide people deeper, more specifically into the page. Okay, I think we're wrapped up now and ready to jump into some live website reviews. Unless any feedback, questions, comments, Paige, Karen?
Yeah, we've got a few questions. We'll get to those in a minute. Just thought I'd give you a chance to catch your breath, Andy, before we jump into the live site audit. Karen, that was really helpful, and I think you had a lot to chime in with. But was there anything that you wanted to chat about, the impactful conversion tests you've run lately? I know we were chatting about that before.
Yeah, so I would say all of the most impactful content tests I've run in probably the past 18 months. Actually, I just blew my own surprise there. They're all content tests. I know we have arguments all the time about like the best UX and like, is it actually easy to get from point A to point B? And like, don't get me wrong, like it obviously has to be easy to get from point A to point B. But if you aren't convincing people to take that initial step and like jump in, then there's no point in optimizing the rest of the conversion flow, because not enough people are going to take the leap and click your CTA. And so this is just another plug for just how important content is and how important good content is. Like, you don't need the most beautiful website, but you do need the best content.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we talked quite a lot about proof and making sure you're actually putting those claims out there with some evidence behind them. We had a question from Pavilion Plus and Christopher L. Joss, both kind of talking about how they can create that credibility when they don't have any references or testimonials or reviews yet.
Other types of evidence might be, are you a member of any organizations? Have you won any awards? Do you have any certifications? I've seen sites in this category and that were submitted for review that sort of kind of fake it by having the technologies we use. So the logos of the technologies we use, it's not as strong. Or sometimes people just put a face of one of their team members with a quote about what they love about, I love our process because, and put quotes around it. So you can kind of emulate the kind of the experience to the visitor of seeing that, even though it wasn't technically a testimonial, it was a quote from someone on your team. I think that actually can still feel quite legit. But the best way that I know to get testimonials is to just make it part of your process to call every one of your clients after every project and ask them for feedback. some percentage of them are going to be super fans, and just ask them politely if they wouldn't mind if you used that, those words on your page.
Yeah. And one thing we did as an agency was actually write the rough quote for them and get them to edit or change it or approve it, because then you're taking the work away from them as well. So that's a good one.
And in that page, you can get a keyword focused testimonial, which is both cheese and mousetrap.
You know it. You know it. I'll let you get up some sites that we want to live audit. Whilst you're doing that, there's another question here from Pavilion Plus around ranking for as many related topics, not just keywords. And they're saying, how would you do that without a blog? Now, as an SEO that's worked in many fields and for many clients over the years, you don't need a blog. Like, create some guides. Just because it's not a blog, you've got a website. It doesn't have to sit under a blog. Create evergreen, like, decent guide content. Karen, were you about to jump in there as well?
No, I was just gonna keep talking about the previous topic, but we need to get it moving.
We're doing pretty good, guys. I feel good about this. We've got, I know that was fast, but we've recorded this and you're reading the slides. So we covered a lot because it's all going to frame up this next conversation here. So yeah, let's make this as interactive as possible. I have just tabs. We had hundreds of submissions. So there's a lot of things that we can look at here today. If we run out, anyone can submit their own through the chat, but let's just do what we can on these. Not that there's that much to talk about, but this is an example of that tip about having a keyword focused sitemap or a search optimized sitemap. This was a submitted site. It actually has very strong evidence, and there's many things I think are beautiful and probably successful about this website. But it doesn't have, the navigation's a little non-traditional, but it doesn't actually have a page for each service. So I clicked on our services and it says great voice experience to start here. It's a voice first marketing company. Super interesting, right? But there aren't keyword focused pages, which may explain why it ranks for nothing. It ranks 62 for voice marketing agency. Why wouldn't it rank higher for voice marketing agency? It doesn't really even mention voice marketing agency. Doesn't appear here. It says voice first marketing agency. So this is an example of a site that lacks a set of pages, each targeting a variation of a key phrase. So that's one that I think is, although beautiful website, maybe effective for already brand aware visitors, but it's not one that's going to attract anyone from search. I'm on this one now, Cross Digital Marketing Agency. This is, I don't want to express opinions. I want to try to avoid opinions. It's kind of inevitable, but I'm going to stay focused on best practices and sort of the things that I have strong reason to believe would be more impactful or can give strong cases for. I'm not going to say, I like this or I like that, or this is pretty or ugly or whatever. But here at the top of this page, this is the site that kind of scales to fit the screen on a big desktop, so you're seeing it wide. I think that it's generally a mistake to put social media icons in the header, especially when they're colorful, because the only there's color temperature, right? Purple, green, and blue are cool. Red, orange, and yellow are warm. So in a cool context, which is definitely the case here, this warm color for Instagram really stands out. It's an exit click. Do you really want your visitor to leave and go to Instagram? If I go to Instagram from here, I'm going to see lots of distractions and ads and competitors and shoes and I don't know, whatever else stuff that I'm following. I'm going to see notifications, and I think this is too visually prominent for social media icons. There's a downside to having the email link here because that is not really easily tracked in analytics as a conversion. I'd rather send visitors to a contact form, which you see here actually beautifully done. Book a virtual conversation and a website audit tool. I'm not seeing any of the work except for the words website design. This picture doesn't indicate any, it only indicates the geography. So change the text and this could be a site about something totally different. This paragraph is likely too long. I work hard to make sure I never write paragraphs longer than 3 lines. And here's an example about us. That's a missed opportunity to have a more specific descriptive subhead or H2. Also, these are navigable, but don't actually take you to the page. You have to go to the services page to go to those. So I guess the learn more would take you there. Audit your website for free. Finally some evidence. This is the first time we saw evidence. I would have moved this up. Consider moving the evidence up, because really so far, everything you see here could be said by anybody, even a startup that just formed yesterday.
Except for the award winning. Like, what award? Like,
yes.
If you have an award, it's like buried and it's.
Let's see it. Yeah, that's a great point. It says award-winning, but it doesn't present the evidence. And then down here, I think this is, these are actually quite compelling. And then down here, I don't love the price promotion. It's not, I think that this is an industry that requires a lot of trust, website development. A lot of clients have been burned. Digital marketing, SEO sounds like mysterious. So to say like, something is free or free trial, that concerns me a little bit. And then down here, it's like, let's connect. I think this is like an email sign up. I believe it is, but it's not specific or descriptive. Maybe these are the awards down here, something else. So yeah, and then when we get to the pages like this,
because that's sitting under your favorite word, Andy, services.
Services.
We did actually have a question from Molly Kavanagh about what do you suggest as a nav link or site title instead of services?
Digital marketing services. Nice. Just something, I mean, add something else to it. I mean, if you read this navigation, home, about us, services, free resources, testimonials, blog, contact, 100 million companies have that exact same navigation. Was there a missed opportunity to differentiate or to speak very quickly and clearly to the visitor who lands on this page? We've done eye tracking studies because I have a fancy eye tracking rig, and you can see visitors quickly move to the main navigation. In fact, a lot of visitors, like 70% of visitors in our studies, don't scroll on the homepage at all. They want to quickly segment themselves, which is good. The goal of the homepage is to get the visitor off of the homepage and onto a more specific page. But I would just look for chances to say something that's more specific. Here, this is Orbit Media. What does this company do? No ambiguity there, right? I can tell exactly what you do. So that's sort of that's the idea for this. Again, testimonials. These are great, but they're not on the pages that are relevant to the service. We'll see that again. I'd recommend putting these on the pages that are relevant to the service.
Can I jump in with an accessibility thing as well?
Please.
Anything that is aligned to the center is actually really hard for people with dyslexia to read. And so whenever possible, make sure that you're left aligning your text, because it also just makes it easier for the rest of us to skim as well.
I saw that on the homepage. It's a little like, think about how this visitor has to flow through here. We've got a featured area image, blocky paragraph, 5 wide carousel, or no, these are just icons. 3 wide, center aligned, 4 wide carousel, 50-50 side by side. So the flow is a little, it doesn't feel like we're guiding the eye very well. And yeah, I agree. That's a little tricky to read, huh? We can move on. Here's a nice site that is a, any other comments? Happy to chat about these. We have limited time, so we're just going to move quickly through some of these. This site is called Citrusbug. It is a software development company. Hire developers. There you go. Strong specificity, right? When you hover over it, we've got a nice mega menu with very specific. It's like, these are verbs. This feels like a call to action, actually. Hire Python, hire Django, hire React.js. I get it. 100% of visitors will know what this company does. Talk to our experts. Sounds like a low commitment CTA, and the full color logos trusted by. I like that word there. They clearly must be legit. It's high up above the fold. And then you get down to this and it's like, oh, look, this is, data. So it's already differentiated, right? You can see this feels like, not everybody could make every one of these claims. These, I would use analytics, maybe Hotjar with a click heat map to see if these are effective or which ones people seem to be the most interested in. We're really pushing that verb hire really strong. I think actually I see it down here.
That widget makes me hurt from an SEO perspective as well, because there's part of me that says that content doesn't load until on click.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
It's sort of, and it's a little bit early to, I don't know. It's probably, the visitor could scroll through it and see them if they were stacked.
Andy, was it you that I will always remember you said about carousels, similar to this, in that with a carousel, 90% of your content is hidden?
That's another way to put it. Thank you. So
I think that was your quote.
It was. So the developers say this, and they tell the client, we made a carousel so that the visitor can see all these other things when they click. Actually, what the developer did was we made a carousel so we hid all of these things until they click. So it's much easier to scroll and scan than it is to aim and tap or click. So you made the visibility of these bottom ones extremely low, right? The chance that a visitor will make it through 10 items and tap on this, not very likely. So what carousels and accordions and sprites and expandable content areas do, they're really hiding things. They're not making things visible. They're tucking it away. Scrolling, much easier. If you stack it, a far greater percentage of people will see it. So I'm sort of anti-carousel after, or at least in the examples when I've tested it or checked the heat maps. They have something great down here. Why citrus bug? Look at this. They have like an embedded clutch widget. Really fantastic. But it's at the very, very bottom of the page. So it's very low on the visual hierarchy. It's got so many elements here that are effective. Quotes, it's a face. The thing I don't love about this is I think the .5 looks like 0.5, like half a star. It doesn't look like that on clutch. I think where the decimal is kind of important here. I think the designer got fancy and put a 0 in front of things. FAQ, again, very low payback for the tap. Why not just make all this information visible? This is fancy UX with no benefit to the visitor. And then an overcommitment expectation on the call to action. I'm not actually hiring a development company when I fill this out. I'm just starting a conversation. So the verb here increases the psychological commitment unnecessarily. I think that could be just chat with an expert, check our availability. And bottom line, what is this visitor really hoping for? What are they afraid of? This is like an offshoring consideration for them. What bad stories have they heard? What are they worried about? How do we address that? Again, back to the copy, to Karen's earlier point.
Mm-hmm.
Other thoughts?
I actually don't hate the click to see the FAQ, only from a data nerd perspective, because then I can actually track to see which questions are the most engaged with, and then making that more, adding some more of that content to the page, or maybe even making an additional page to answer some of those specific questions as people are Googling for them.
I love that very much. I kept this slide in my back pocket. This is a heat map from Hotjar on an FAQ, expandable content areas. And you can see some of them get expanded and some of them never do, right?
Yep, we're running some tests right now where we're actually taking some of the most clicked FAQs and working that copy into like higher up into the page.
That's awesome. Another FAQ tip, if you have an FAQ page and you look at the navigation summary for that page, you can see which of your pages is not answering an important question.
Really
These pages are
important
sending
question.
visitors to the FAQ page.
Sorry, Andy, really important question that I think we should address before we move on, from Nicholas Infanti Torres. Sorry if I butchered your name. Is it true that text inside accordions is not read by Google?
Go ahead, Paige.
Of course it's read by Google, unless you've done it in a really bad way. Accordions can be really great for a UX, particularly on mobile devices. I love an accordion on mobile just to help like minimize just a lot of text on a page, particularly on mobiles. The one that you want to avoid is, again, devs getting fancy. I had a client once that only loaded the text within the accordion on click. So when you inspected the code of the page, that content did not exist. Google don't click things. It can click through to pages and can click through to things, but it can't click elements to make things load. So just make sure if you're using expandable boxes, I love them, but just use the right ones. Thank you, Andy.
In this example, I feel like they could have worked a little harder on this. How do you ensure my security of information? This is like a person who's worried about security. Your answer? Oh, we signed an NDA. This is an actual technical security question. So think about, maybe vet your FAQs by having conversations with people, or riding shotgun on sales meetings and just listening to how the best reps, again, the best sales pages emulate a sales conversation. So the extent to which that page is really giving the best possible answer. If I'm an IT director and I say, how do you protect my information? You're like, oh, I signed some paper. Not sufficient. Yeah.
And one of the best ways is like, if you have a customer service department, literally go and ask them, what are the frequently asked questions? Like literally, true to your word, what are they?
Yep. Another trick for that sometimes is to like read if you've got a search, look at your search terms report to see what people are searching for. That'll give you clues. Reading your chat logs sometimes, that might give you clues. We did 2 agency sites. Should we move on to another website?
Yeah, let's move on.
Let's do it.
While you're just getting up the next site, we've got a question from Melanie Hendricks about title text. So she said that the subtitle text is, Figma connects everyone in the design process so teams can deliver better products. how do you tag this stuff for success in the SERPs? Now, I'm assuming we're talking headers and subheaders, question, answer, content. Now, to me, that doesn't sound like a very optimized header at all.
So in Figma, this is like a workflow question about how information is marked inside the development process that leads to building pages that are optimized for search. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah. So she's got a previous question which precedes this one. How do you tag headings when they are hooks and not just keywords, or when your keywords are in the subtitle after the hook? For example, that Figma question. So I think what I would say here is, what I tend to do is go and look for those PAAs, like look in the SERP for the queries you're trying to go after, and use those questions as your headers rather than what you think it should be. Like you could phrase that query that you've given us as a question potentially and answer that question. Look in the SERPs. I don't know if you guys can add anything to that.
Well, I mean, the page has to indicate relevance to search. So the header the H1 tag should be reserved for that. And then the header needs to also help the visitor understand where they are on the page. So you have two different considerations to make when doing some of these things. If you wanted to write some clever subheads, I think that's a fine place to do it, is in the H2s. I really don't love when people write super clever headers. The headers should tell the visitor that they're in the right place. Human clicks, page loads, first question in their mind, am I in the right place? So when you have clever headers, and this is a giant insurance company, so the example we're looking at here maybe it's fine for them, but this is not, this header doesn't pass the backyard barbecue test. If I met you at a party and I said, what do you do for a living? And you said, I enable people to have the freedom to live and work anywhere in the world. Like, what? Wait, you're an insurance company. So I think that H1s should be clear and H2s can be clever. So that's some of the things that I think about while constructing pages.
Thank you. What else can we say about this website?
This is clearly a big company and a well-established business. So now we've moved away from agencies and we're on an actual service provider. So this is an insurance company. One thing that I thought was interesting, and Karen would love to see what you think. It took me a minute. This is the drop down. It's a full page invasion, taking every pixel, and it can be closed with this X. But when I first clicked on this, I thought I was on a different page. To me, I think it's difficult. It's more work. It's a heavier cognitive load for your visitor to scan things both left and right and up and down. So what does this company do? It's like a bunch of mega menus right here. So I would reconsider this mega menu to make it easier to scan. It could also give people a little more information. Here's a site we did, sales readiness platform. There's a call to action, right? There's some hierarchy with this other area on the right. And then each of these modules is keyword focused and very specific. Specificity correlates with clicks. And then a little bit of text underneath each. This one here, I don't know. Karen, wouldn't you love to test this?
I would love to test this and find out which things people are actually clicking on, and if some of the things can be combined into their own little subgroupings. Because it seems like they have subgroupings on the left, but you don't actually look over there. You're distracted by this huge grid of things. So it's not entirely clear. It's a lot. Yeah.
The changing of colors, in my experience, you'll never be able to measure the impact from that. People often ask for that in conference rooms and in marketing meetings, like, let's color code every section. Your visitor does not care about that at all. It's like, oh, I would have gotten personal insurance if only this had been blue. Nobody ever said that. So this is one where I think it's actually using a lot of pixels to do work that could be handled in kind of a much easier to scan way. So that's one of my concerns about this. About Us has the testimonials, I think, right here. These are missing from the pages. If I go to the personal insurance page, it doesn't have any testimonials. This is an example where I would blow it up and move these onto the pages where they add more supportive evidence. Could make a big difference. And again, reviews are testimonials. It's kind of a boring subhead there, you can imagine. But this is also a fun one to look at from the perspective of search, because if you run this through a tool, I would use Google Search Console if this was my client. I don't have access to their tools, but I put it in SEMrush. I'm looking at all their rankings. I've excluded some high-ranking blog posts, and also I've excluded their brand. So when I get to this, and I scroll down, I found one right away. They rank number 5 for international life insurance. That's an awesome phrase. That might be worth millions of dollars a year, literally ranking for that phrase. Let's search for it. 4 ads, that's big. Here comes one organic, traditional organic, followed by people also ask. You get down here, yes, there they are. Could they rank higher for this phrase? Let's take a look at the page. Remember, this is ranking for international life insurance. That's not the H1. It's not the title. Give me, hold my beer for 15 minutes and I'll make this page rank. Seriously, it's a lot of missed opportunities. There's no semantic SEO here, right? It's just not, it doesn't seem to be constructed in that way. It doesn't feel like a search optimized page. And I mentioned Market Muse earlier. I just threw this into Market Muse. It doesn't mention permanent life, doesn't mention universal life, doesn't mention the words insurance company, doesn't mention, some of these, there's a lot of other phrases. Insurance plan isn't mentioned here. So this is an example of a site that has actually the first half of the battle addressed, which is to have a set of pages that all target different phrases and have a page per thing. But then the second half of the battle, I think it just looks like a good opportunity because there is quite a few missed semantic SEO elements on this page. So that's one where, my mouth kind of waters like, wow, really? You're already ranking number 5 for a phrase, and there's, a lot of sort of missed opportunities. And it's a famous site, high domain authority, big opportunities.
Such quick wins as well. Such easy, quick wins.
Yeah.
Love it.
I've got several others here. We're making pretty good time. Paige, should we jump into another, or is there another question?
Yeah, I think carry on. No one was brave enough to send us their live site, sadly, although a couple of people said that they might, but they're not thick-skinned enough. So let us loose on it.
There's great things about everyone's website. We don't mean to be hypercritical.
No, we're here to help. Promise. Yeah. We'll be really nice. We'll be really nice.
We want you to succeed.
Feedback.
Yeah. If we're here for you, we're like, it's our job to help you today. So yeah.
Exactly. Whoever's in the chat, like I've seen someone just say they've sent you our site. Please put it in the YouTube chat. That's where I'm fiddling. So if you pop it in there, I'll send it to Andy and we'll get it up.
We'll do this one quick in case someone does volunteer. I'm on a site called Monster Mobile Marketing. The logo treatment is so small I can't actually read even the smaller text there. So that's probably a variant of the logo might be helpful. But this is a page where I ask myself, there's a visual hierarchy here. What does this page want me to look at? And there's a lot of things that are kind of competing for my attention. So it's the city name, there's a large text. There's the top right CTA, which is just contact, and then there's movement. And as I scroll down, it's got kind of that same thing, 4-column layout with these stock photos with all different type treatments. If you just count 1, 2, there's the purple, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the small text, 7 is the italicized purple. There's probably 10 or 12 different text treatments on this page already, and I've only started scrolling. I would drop these in favor and the stock photos in favor of actual people from your team. I think that's often a missed opportunity, is to just be more personal, more human. And it's way down here before I finally get some evidence. Memberships, there's companies that they've worked with, the portfolio. Everything above this so far is stuff that anybody could say. So we ask ourselves unmet or unsupported marketing claims. What was so the evidence I think was a little bit too low. Also, I want to point out this page. There's a video here. So there's lots of movement. But there's a video down here that is really not promoting the business as much as just promoting web development. So we don't have to watch this, but that's an idea where, ask yourself if you're really answering these people's top questions. There are other examples. Where's that big boy? Here's another one. Lots of it. This is a beautiful site in lots of ways. Tons of evidence here, the big portfolio. This is what they do. But where are the people? Where are the faces? They actually do have, and I love this down here. This is what I recommended. Chat with Alex. Good for you, Alex. You put yourself out there, book a call, very differentiated. If I go to meet the team, I can find there's people for everything, but there aren't pages per person. That's why this site is outranked for the people's names by social media networks. Look, this is a person there, Carrie, but the this website is outranked by LinkedIn for Carrie because this website doesn't have a page for Carrie. Same thing. You need a page per person. It's sort of missing that. Oops, where was it? You're sort of missing that opportunity by just having a a part of the page. So it's a little SEO trick. It's good personal branding for each of the team members, for the leadership. Good for PR. Make a page per person the same way you'd make a page for each product. There are so many opportunities here. Which one was the?
We have one. We have
good.
one.
I would say, can I jump in with one quick accessibility thing as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll
All
put
caps.
the website in the chat.
All caps is also really difficult for people to skim. And then, of course, we have a contrast issue as well here. It's like anytime you're putting words on top of a photo, make sure you can read all the words, please.
I agree. Screen this back. Thanks again, Karen, for bringing up accessibility. You're like a hero. We should all be all in on accessibility. United Nations says that access to information is a human right. Think about that. It's a human right.
Having more accessible content, it lifts all boats. It's easier for everyone to understand, not just people who have disabilities.
It aligns with search. It aligns with load time. It aligns with all your other goals. Paige, do you want to look at one? Do you want to recommend one?
Yes, so creekmoremarketing.com. I've just put it in our private chat. Apologies to the people on YouTube. Apparently YouTube was blocking everyone sending domains in the chat because
there might have been quite a few. Yeah. Another day we should just do a marathon of website reviews. Creekmore Marketing, contrast issue there. Oh, I see what's happening. It's a fading background color, kind of cool. 140 Google reviews, instant credibility, right? Differentiation. Digital marketing obsessed with, that's a fun word that you wouldn't often see. That sounds like the audience wrote that themselves, right? It's more forthright and candid than you might expect, helping small businesses grow. This is the opposite of intuitive design. When you have to put arrows showing the person to scroll, that means you've made the featured area too big. There's no benefit to these pixels offer zero value. So this is a pet peeve of mine, and my designers do this too sometimes, but tighten it up, bring it up. Navigation labels are all vague. Small drop-down menus test poorly generally in usability studies. Just to check briefly, are there pages per person? Nope. This is that same point we just made. Great photos of the team. Very human, right? Let's go back to the homepage and just check Google reviews. Are you really going to let me leave and go to Google? No, you put it on a page. Cool.
And it's in the nav too.
Good. That makes perfect sense. Reviews, but let's also put them on the other pages that talk about the service itself. We're back on the home page. Marketing. Is that not? Oh, I see. It was load time. No problem. Marketing, design, communications, the visual hierarchy here. These are very powerful compared to the more maybe meaningful text to the visitor. You won't see a difference if you did a test, but maybe I would consider screening those back. Our mission, again, great tone. I'm feeling you. Love it. Stock photo. Oh, you could have done. I would probably choose something more personal, even if it was a bit lower production value. Award-winning. Again, where's the award? Oh, here they are. Strong. Love it. Glad to see that. Real data, real results. Get a free consultation that's not specific to your industry or the, I don't know. If this is working, great, keep doing it. But there's other ways I could imagine that, maybe by putting a face or something else here. Social media icons have low visual prominence, which I recommended in the very, very beginning. But these little drop downs test pretty poorly in usability studies. You could make a page it's good to have a page for each, but also nice to consider maybe a larger drop down that adds that value like I showed here on this this other website.
Great feedback for that one. Let's try and do amandabarrettphotography.com. We've got 1 minute left. Let's crack on.
Amanda, I'm typing as fast as I can. Hey, look at that.
She's a photographer. We can see what she's photographing.
Yep. Baby photography, right? So this must be her focus, or she probably wouldn't have that Nashville newborn photographer. Maybe that's keyword focused. If it is, I love it. Even if it's not, it's still good for visibility. Or for
left align that text. Left align.
Left align. That was really helpful to know, Karen. I actually didn't know that about dyslexia.
Get to know me is probably a great CTA. The personal, obviously great photography, warm color palette. There's some evidence down here at the bottom. These are also evidence, but I would consider maybe just adding to this page a pile of short testimonials with pictures next to each.
And I would change the about link to something like Meet Amanda or something that's more like personal, because it is that relationship that you have with your customers.
Particularly as a baby photographer as well, like you're going to have
you want to trust
personal-
them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing, guys. Thank you so much. I'm afraid that's all we have time for today, but such a big thank you to both you, Andy and Karen. That was really, really good. I think I myself has learned a lot, and I think the audience has too. We're definitely going to have to do that marathon.
Sounds good.
I'm in. Let me know.
Thank you,
Looking
guys,
forward
and
to
thank you to our audience. Audience, please stick around for our next session. I'll be joined now by our next guests. Welcome. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. And
Bye.
here they are. Big welcome to Ashley, Lauren, and Gerald. Lovely to see you all. And for anybody just joining us now, welcome to Dudacon. This is the second of 3 talks today, so stick around for our final talk of the day after this one, and come back tomorrow for more great content as well. As with the previous session, we're going to do a Q&A at the second half of this track. So we'll do presentation followed by Q&A. Please do get your questions into chat as soon as you have them. I'll go back and start from the beginning. So the quicker you ask your question, the more likely it is that we'll have time to answer it. So let's crack on with Uplift SEO with content gap analysis and free templates. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself first, followed by Gerald, then Ashley can intro herself and go straight into her presentation. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Hi, Lauren Baker, founder of Search Engine Journal. Been doing content strategy and gap analysis for way too long, and I'm really excited to be reviewing this today with Ashley, and also to see which questions come in from all of our viewers. So welcome to Dudacon. This is my first Dudacon, by the way, so I'm super excited.
Welcome, Gerald.
Likewise, my first Dudacon as well. And hi, everyone. I live and breathe search. Absolutely love it. Oddly, I fell in love with it academically. I actually studied search engines. Really, really weird. Didn't even intend to. I wanted to be a teacher. So I'm here to talk about search anytime. I'm really looking forward to getting involved in today's session.
All right, perfect. So I will take it away and start sharing my deck as well as get intro going. Perfect. Everyone see it okay? Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to start us out with diving straight into content and going over a lot of fundamentals. My name is Ashley Segura. I'm the co-founder of Top Hat Content, a content agency, Top Hat Social, a social agency, and the VP of Ops of Top Hat Rank, an SEO agency. In the very little spare time that I have between all of those roles, I also like to write some articles for Search Engine Journal, shout out to Lauren, SEMrush, and Search Engine Land. So going into diving deep into your content, the very first thing you need to do is figure out how your content performs, which naturally will lead you into a content audit. Like mentioned in the beginning, there's lots of templates throughout this. So you can always email me, ashley@tophatcontent.com, to get blank templates in order to execute on the things that we'll be talking about today. Content audits, I highly recommend doing on a quarterly basis. I know lots of brands who do this once every 5 years and wonder why the heck their content doesn't perform and why they're not getting the traffic that they thought they should be getting. It's because you have no idea what your content is actually doing for you, what's working and what's not working. In the content audits that we do over at Top Hat Content, the very first thing that we do is collect the data. That's the whole point of a content audit, is you want to look at the data to analyze what's working, what's not. There's a couple different ways to do this. If you don't have a whole suite of a bunch of different SEO tools and marketing tools, you can go into Google Analytics and go into Google Search Console and manually pull all of this data out. Or you can crawl the website using tools like BuzzSumo to grab the social metrics, and then Screaming Frog. We absolutely love doing crawls using Screaming Frog. It is very easy. When you go in and actually do the crawl, collect all of the data for all of the content across your website, you're going to start to notice certain patterns. What we do is we'll take this exported data, turn it into a spreadsheet, and start filtering the columns to see, okay, over here you have about 100 column or 100 pieces of content that for some reason you made a human mistake, you forgot to put a meta description on these pages, or these pieces of content are missing each ones, or these only have, for some strange reason, they only have 50 words on the page. And so depending upon your site, your client's site, when you do the crawl, you're going to start to notice a lot of very specific patterns where certain errors with your content are. That's where we take that, copy and paste all those and group them into specific tabs. The point of them putting them into tabs is to make this really easy to actually turn this into like a checklist and be like, okay, here's 100 posts that need meta descriptions. I'm going to just focus my one day here on just writing meta descriptions for all of these posts. Or here's 100 posts that don't have H1s designated. So I'm going to go in, and this kind of makes it a little bit easier to digest and go through a workflow. Some of the most common tabs that we generally see is the leave as is posts. These are posts that, these are going to be your top performers that you don't want to mess with, posts that were published within the last 30 days or less. Depending upon how big your site is, some brands, some marketers like to say, okay, I'm just going to give Google 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, we get a ton of traffic. We get hundreds of thousands of people looking at this. We have enough data within the 2-week range. I like to suggest give a piece of content, a brand new piece of content, a month, and then you'll have a good range of data to be able to quantify whether it did good or not. So this is a new post. It's only been on for a week or two. Let's not touch it. Other posts that you want to just leave as is, don't update, don't delete, don't do anything to, are posts that have quality backlinks and are actually a part of a conversion path. Another common tab, and this is where most of the work comes out of a content audit, are the posts that you need to update. These are going to be posts that have a combination of a lot of traffic, but people are bouncing off. They're not engaging. They're not going on your conversion. They're clearly interested in the topic and the keyword that you're writing about, but they're not connecting further. It's also topics that competitors are outranking you for, which we're going to go through a content gap analysis and figure that out. And then content that you have new relevant content to add to, such as seasonal content. When you go through your audit, you're going to get so much information, but some of the most positive information that you're going to get is the pieces of content that actually did well. These are the ones that you're going to retell, and there's 2 different types of ways to retell. You can republish your content, you can recycle your content. Basically, this concept is taking what's already working really well and just amplifying it even more, adding more depth about whatever the specific topic is or keyword is, and changing the medium. You don't want to republish all of your content though. I have so many clients that'll come back and be like, okay, so all of this did really well for a whole month. I'm just going to republish all of this. No, that's not the point. That's going to create a lot more work for you than what the return is. You really only want to republish content that's done well or really poorly. This isn't your page 1 content. This is the content that's ranking on page 2 to 5. You're almost there, but you're just not there yet. And there's definitely an opportunity to update the content or repackage whatever that topic is and really amplify it. This is where you're going to get the high traffic, but the high bounce rate, and fix those issues. When you're updating your content, just a small side note, I highly, highly recommend never changing the URL unless you absolutely have to, because simply we are humans and we forget all of the places that URL is linked to. There's lots of tools out there. There's plugins out there that can go and search and identify those URLs for you. But then occasionally there's that social media post from 4 months back that still gets engagement, and now you've changed the URL and now it's broken and now no one's going to it. You also don't want to change the date without changing the actual content. This is some terrible hack that was recommended a long time ago, to just change all of your content to top restaurants to eat in 2022 instead of top restaurants to eat in 2021. And then they don't actually update those restaurants. Spoiler alert, half those restaurants may have been closed, or their website could have changed, or their hours of operation could have changed. And now your content's outdated and all you did was just add the date. People aren't going to stick around. They're going to bounce right back off. And now your brand's going to be a little tainted because you did that. Okay, so you went through a content audit. You got more data than you probably knew what to do with. You grouped it into any kinds of patterns that you could identify. You're starting to update some of the posts to really try and increase your content strength. Now you need to look at the competition. This is a competitor analysis that we do where we look at 3 to 5 different competitors and really analyze what's working well for them, what we can learn from that, and what we can then implement. Filling out the spreadsheet is, for the most part, pretty black and white as far as the information that's going to be in the columns. And lots of text on this slide. You guys can email me for the slides. This is so you actually know how to work through it. To pull this data is going to be the more complicated part. You definitely want to use an SEO tool for this. You can use Ahrefs, SEMrush, Moz, SpyFu, and ideally what you're looking for is to identify a competitor's top 10 to 15 articles and then collect the data of those 10 to 15 articles and put them into the spreadsheet. For this example, we'll go inside of SEMrush and use the organic research tool. And you can actually get, this is like the scariest part where everyone's always like, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to get all the competitors' data. That's not just like out there information, but it is. And so you can go inside the organic research tool. It's going to give you all of the metrics that you need in order to completely fill out the spreadsheet. Repeat this for 3 to 5 different competitors. Ideally, you could just go inside the tools and run through this exercise, but where it's really nice to compile all of this data into one spreadsheet is because of the end column. This is the recommendation column. This is all the way at the end of the spreadsheet. Being able to see exactly what your competitors are doing for their top ranking articles, what their data is, and also seeing if you have similar content on your website, this is going to tell you which topics your competitors are ranking for that maybe you don't have content for. That's going to generate new content ideas for you. But it's also going to go a step further. Say you both have an article on slow cooker ribs, and their article, for whatever reason, is performing a whole lot better. By seeing all that data right there in front of you in the spreadsheet, you're going to be able to see, okay, well, their article was 800 words and mine was only 300. Terrible example, but say there was a big indicator there that the word length was, the word count was different. And then you also look, oh, well, they also had a bunch of backlinks. I don't have any backlinks. So I should probably update this and add more content, figure out what information people want, add that information, and then work on getting some backlinks to this, because that's what worked for the competitor. And that's how I can potentially outrank them. You're also going to discover topics that you're outperforming the competition with. Even though this may be their 10 to 15 best articles, for whatever reason, you could be outranking them on the slow cooker ribs. And this is going to be a great indicator that, okay, for whatever reason, you're becoming an authority on this. Maybe you should publish more content about ribs. And these are all food examples, so I'm sorry if you're hungry. So you went through the content audit, you went through the competitor gap analysis, and you didn't get the data that you were hoping for. You figured out through the content audit that a lot of your content isn't performing the way you thought it was. In the competitor analysis, you figured out that the competitor's outranking you for a lot. And basically, you have a ton of work to do. When you're going through and really analyzing what posts should be updated and how to update them. And yes, you have all the data from the competitor analysis, but you're just still feeling a little bit stuck on why your content isn't going above and beyond. Go back to the basics and make sure that your content is actually optimized properly. This is looking at your title, your meta description, your heading structure, which is huge. The actual content itself, how you have the focus keyword laid out. Also, are you using bullets? Do you have an introductory paragraph that's 5 sentences long and then a bunch of smaller paragraphs? How is that broken up? What are you doing with your images? Do you have internal links? Do you have external links? It's really peeling things back and looking at the basics to make sure that the piece of content is optimized properly to begin with. This is an example of heading structure that we highly recommend when you're just completely lost. Like, well, I thought I designated an H1, or for some reason I have 20 H3s and I don't even know how the heck that happened. This is a simple structure to kind of guide you as you go through. Image optimization, ideal image width is going to be about 1200 pixels with a file size of 100 kilobytes or less. 9 times out of 10, that's great information, but we're talking about updating posts that are already published, and most of the times someone updated a bunch of images to a piece of content and they didn't do the 1200 pixels to begin with, or the image file size was really large, or the alt text image name was Shutterstock photo 123. So ideally, it's great to resize your images before adding them and titling them correctly before adding them. But that doesn't always happen. That's just not always a realistic workflow. So Short Pixel is a great plugin that will go in and compress and optimize your images for you that are already published. Descriptive image file names and alt text is really important, especially for optimizing your content. And it's something that gets overlooked because we're busy. We're going through a checklist of optimizing our content and we forget basic things like this. It actually took me to page 3 before I actually found a great example to use in this deck where an image actually identified properly what it is when I was looking for breakfast smoothies. So took a screenshot of this and it popped up healthy breakfast smoothies. And that is exactly what this image represents. And it's exactly what the article represents. Internal and external linking is incredibly important because we don't want users to just land on a piece of content, digest it, and then go back to Google and continue their search, or go back to social media because they're over it at that point. We want to take them onto a path. This is marketing 101, whether you're an SEO, content, social, PPC, anyone. This is marketing 101, is taking them through a conversion path, and your content needs to replicate that. And that's where internal linking will take them on a journey. But you need to make sure that that journey actually makes sense. To do that, you need to truly understand why your customer is coming to that piece of content and what they would want out of that next. And make sure you're providing that with your internal and external links. The hyperlink text also needs to be relevant. Otherwise, you're going to basically be providing users, tell them, oh, hey, if you click on this, you're going to find out more information about almond breeze. But just kidding, when you get to that article, I'm instead going to teach you how to make oat milk. What do you think your users are going to do? They're going to bounce right back, and they're not going to go back to the article. They're going to go back to Google, go back to their original search, go to one of your competitors' article, and actually go through their proper funnel instead of staying on your content, which is the worst possible thing that could happen. So if you're going to hyperlink a text in your article, make sure that what you're saying you're going to send them to is actually what you're going to send them to. Like I said at the beginning, this is fundamentals and it's 2022 and we're still seeing these issues all the time. But if you don't have the right topic to begin with, really none of that matters. You have to make sure that you're matching the intent with what you're providing. In order to figure out if you have the right topic and if what you're writing about is actually what your users want to see, this is where that content gap analysis comes through. This is where you're identifying keywords that your competitors are ranking for to generate new topic ideas and opportunities for yourself. So to do this, we hop right back into SEMrush once again, and we'll go inside their keyword gap tool. We'll put in a few different competitors, and then we'll start to filter the results. Here, we're filtering by search volume. We want to remove any branded keywords because that's not going to be relevant content for us to create. And we're looking for opportunities. So these are going to be keywords ranking within the top 2 to 5 pages. This is where your competitors are doing okay, but they're not on page 1 yet. So this means you can create a new piece of content and jump in and actually potentially get on page 1. So you'll export that data, put it back into a spreadsheet, remove the actual competitor URLs and the competitors' names. So then you just have this very nice, simple spreadsheet where it shows all the keywords and what their search volume is. You can then sort that column going from high search volume to low, but just be careful not to completely ignore those low to medium search volume terms. There's still plenty of opportunity there, as long as it's not really, really low search volume. If no one's looking for it, why write about it? So these keywords can essentially become topics. Once you've moved all the branded terms out, you've moved the competitor URL out, we're looking at turning this into new pieces of content that you could potentially rank for. Taking a keyword, creating a topic, titling it, making it something that people are actually going to be enticed to click on. This is now going to be new topics for your topic calendar. But take it a step further. Make sure what you're publishing is fully fleshed out, addressing everything that people are asking. And this is where, once again, I'll hop back into SEMrush and I'll go to the topic research tool. If you take away nothing else from this, at the very least, check out the topic research tool. It is my favorite content marketing tool that's out there. So copy and paste a keyword. Again, food references. We work with a lot of food bloggers, so that these are all my examples here. So pork chop temperature, if locality means something for you or your client, then you can put in the country, the city, and then you're going to get a bunch of these cards. These are cards with other relevant keywords. What I'm looking for here is something that has high search volume, but also has to do with my original topic, my original keyword, which is pork chop temperature. So here I'm looking for something that has to do with an oven temperature. So I'll click on baked pork chops as the card, and it identifies all the who, what, when, where, why, how questions that people are actually asking. These are the questions that people are searching for. From these questions, not only do they make great topic ideas for you to create new content for, but even better, these are headings. These are perfect headings that are literally crafted for you that you can copy and paste. You can either make these into titles or the heading option, which I highly recommend. On the left side of the card, aside from the questions, you're going to get the headlines. These are the top 10 articles that are already and currently ranking for that keyword and for that term. So naturally, put your marketer hat on and see if you can diagnose any patterns. Right away, 3 out of 10 of these articles have the word juicy in them. So for whatever reason, juicy is helping these articles be clicked on, which makes sense because juicy is a keyword modifier. RankIQ did a food blogger study, which I highly recommend, even if you do nothing relevant to food blogs. It has a lot of really good and interesting findings just about content and what's ranking in general. And keyword modifiers can literally be what makes or breaks why a user is clicking on one article versus the other. So I'll go back in, and as long as it naturally and organically makes sense, I'll add that keyword modifier into these potential headlines or titles and read them out loud, make sure it actually sounds good. And then you're now adding the keyword modifier, which should also help this post rank, because the top 10 articles, 3 out of the top 10 articles are included the word juicy. But at the end of the day, you can optimize until you're blue in the face and read all the webinars, go to all the Dudacons, go to all the sessions in the world that you possibly can. And if you're not actually paying attention to what Google's saying, your content can still miss the mark. Google has quality guidelines for you to actually understand what's going to help your content rank and what's not going to help your content rank, what users like and what users don't like. So the ask yourself links, when you get these slides, you can click on the link and go and actually read Google's quality standards for what they recommend for your content to make sure you're addressing all of their questions, and that your article is not just optimized for SEO, but that it's also optimized for the user. Because at the end of the day, does the content seem to be serving the genuine interest of visitors to the site? Or does it seem to exist solely by someone attempting to guess what might rank well in the search engines? There is no reason that we should be guessing what's going to rank well. We have access to all these tools and all this data. Even if you just use your Google Analytics and Google Search Console, you know what people actually want out of your content, what's going to make them click, engage, and go along your conversion path. So there's no reason to be guessing anymore, and there's no reason to be just optimizing for search engines only. And that's my long story short. Ashley at tophatcontent.com is how you can get all of the templates. And thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. That was brilliant. I'll let you have a breather. You've just spoken for almost 25 minutes straight. So have a drink, have a breather. Gerald, Ashley talked a lot about content recycling and like content retelling. What other similar things can our audience be doing?
Yeah, I think actually, when you start looking at different formats and where content actually lives online, I think it really actually helps brands to think forward. One of the big things that we need to think a lot more of is integrated search. That's to say we're moving away from just looking at, for example, Google. The reality is TikTok is actually growing as a percentage rate of growth much faster than what Google was. If you actually compare the exact same age of what they were at the start, when they actually were born as companies. And essentially this becomes potentially the next big thing. But the way I'm actually which we're consuming information is really fragmented. That's to say, you know, we go to Amazon to buy, we go to YouTube to watch, we go to Google to search. Critically, as a marketer and someone speaking about content, we also need to be thinking about, what is my content looking to achieve? And critically, we need to start aligning that with different searches. And then also attached to that is around stuff around the buyer's journey, which is also, you know, touching on user experience, which I think is amazing that the conference here actually has a talk on web accessibility. I know, Ashley, you mentioned stuff around like name and images. The easiest way to do it is photo of, what's the image saying? That's it. It's literally made for someone who's visually impaired. I'm really, really thinking about outside the box, outside of, oh, I'm just writing a blog post for the sake of it, but actually thinking about, where is this audience? What things do they use? And use that to your advantage to start building out that type of strategy.
Yeah, I love that. Like, content for content's sake is my absolute pet peeve. So I think like thinking about KPIs for your content is so important. For those in the audience, KPIs, key performance indicators, SEOs, we love to throw an acronym around. So my New Year's resolution is to always say what they are. We've actually got a question that I'm going to throw at Lauren from Tylese Pepper. This may sound silly, but one KPI could be backlinks. How do you add backlinks? He said to a Duda site, but to any piece of content.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, backlinks are going to help with overall discovery, right? Not only from the site itself, but from external sites. So in terms of getting started, there's a couple of easy ways to do so. One is to go out and search for and find other publishers that are writing about something similar that you're writing about. They may be somewhat competitors, but you also may find publishers out there that you can connect with that are reaching the same target audience that don't necessarily write about the same thing that you write for. So for example, say Ashley is doing a 30-page piece on juicy pork chops, right? How to cook a juicy pork chop. And then you may not want to go out to a lot of different recipe blogs about pork chops, but you may want to go out to a sous vide enthusiast, or possibly someone that smokes pork or sells smokers or something like that, and writes about those subjects, or writes about family life and ways that you can start cooking these pork chops at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and they're done at 6 for, when everybody's home and ready to eat. So just putting together those groups of potential partners and reaching out to them. It all starts with an email or just joining a Twitter group with other publishers, and just going out and you don't have to send 1,000 of them. Just take the time to build a relationship. It all starts with a relationship. So just to say, hey, I'm a blogger. I like to write about pork chops. You like to write about barbecues or grills, or you like to write about internal home decor. Maybe we can collaborate in the future on a piece on how to cook for your family without having the whole house smell like pork chops, right? And utilizing the right exhaust fans and this and that. Like, there's so many ways that you can kind of team up on that side. So really going out there and looking for those partnerships. And then, there's other ways that aren't necessarily link building in terms of drawing an external link to your site, but there's ways to get your content out there in front of others, such as making sure that you're sharing that content via your email newsletter. Because if you have 1,000, 2,000, 200,000 people signed up for your newsletter, there's a very good chance that not only are those folks active on social media, but they also, you probably have, 5% of your newsletter could be other bloggers, right? So by getting that information out there, it really, really helps to first of all, drive traffic back to your site, which we're always looking for, and especially targeted traffic. Because if it's a newsletter about food and you have a recipe, boom, boom, boom. It sounds simple, but it can be overlooked sometimes. The same with social media, and the same with the other partnerships. So then you look at those relationships that you built trying to get the links, and you're like, hey, you know, in addition to working together or linking back and forth, how about if I send your post out to my audience and you send my post out to your audience, and then suddenly you're doing marketing that's far beyond link acquisition. You're acquiring eyeballs, traffic, audience, and you're also acquiring those Google Chrome user experience signals that do have some sort of mysterious influence on the way that the SERPs work.
Amazing point. And actually, just to jump in on that, I think even when you look at like niche websites too, you know, they can be an amazing repository for keywords. You know, when you look, for example, at something like a quality leather website, and that's literally what they produce as a company, that is a whole universe of itself. I see someone in the chat is dieting, so I'm trying to move away from the food examples all the time. But yeah, exactly. It can be a really, really good repository of actually finding other keyword opportunities to, again, as you mentioned before, recycle, retell, and really start to think about all of the various keywords people use, including specialists, to find content.
Yeah, and just add one more thing there, depending upon the industry, there's Facebook groups for just about every industry now of business owners and brands who are trying to build link opportunities and partnerships. And so I would definitely look into Facebook groups as well, because there's so many groups, not just for food bloggers, but other industries as well that are looking for link opportunities that align and make sense for their audience.
Great advice from everybody. I think the only thing I'd add is if you are lucky enough to have a PR team or PR person, they're also amazing people you can work with just to kind of, they're going to be having those conversations anyway. How can you work together for their outreach, for their PR to work for both of you? So I imagine very few of us have our own dedicated PR person, but if you do, they're also good. Another more technical question from T. For images that we mentioned, what kind of format is best for optimization? They've said PNG, SVG, JPEG. Do you have a preference in the group? No?
I don't have a preference, but if you're going to use WebP, make sure that for Safari browsers and other browsers that don't support Google Chrome supported images, that there's a fallback option in your coding. So what you don't want to do is just serve WebP only, and then no one on Safari can see the images. Make sure that if they're on Safari, then they're serving your .ping or your whatever it may be. That's the most opportune for that user.
Great advice. And I think clearly none of us really have a preference of format, but just make sure they are optimized. You can easily throw your pages through Lighthouse to check if it's flagging up that your images are too big or any of those issues. So yeah, PNG or JPEG seem fine. SVG for logos, right? I think, and icons. Yeah. To be fair, one client I did have had a tiny magnifying glass in a pop-up that was actually this big. And we were like, maybe don't do that.
Yeah.
Moving on. What other questions?
And GIFs for the CDN. You forgot the CDN images.
I forgot, just for the CDN. Yeah, just all of those. Oh, brilliant. So one from Marumoshi, is there a different way to optimize image size on mobile? So yeah, I guess we've talked about content for websites, but do you change your content, the actual content or the style of the page from mobile to desktop?
Ideally, the content on desktop should serve beautifully on mobile without having to create a whole nother mobile user experience for the piece of content. But it's still, no matter how great your theme is or your tech team is, it's still really helpful once you're in that draft mode before you press publish to actually pull out your phone and look at it and make sure. 9 times out of 10, you're still going to see one image for some whatever reason is going over part of the text, and it creates a weird experience. So occasionally you'll have to have 2 different layouts, but ideally what your desktop is serving should also reflect beautifully on mobile.
Completely. And again, it's so cliche to say this, but have a mobile first strategy and you know, always thinking about mobile. That's to say, responsive websites. I think in the community, AMP is it's very controversial now as well, but like other versions.
Don't say that word, Gerald. I won't have that on my...
Don't do it. But just, yeah, making sure we are thinking about that user who's actually consuming that data on whichever device they're using. So it's things like the text size. I think even content marketers being aware of what CSS actually is. It just simply styles a page, making sure that actually people can hit that button you've created a link in. Also test it yourself. And, there's no right or wrong here. If you go on to using your phone and you think that something doesn't feel right, it's a great opportunity to start a conversation as to what devices are most of my people consuming our content on. And the other thing too, I think, is to move away from just looking at content as a blog post, for example. Content has many different formats. And again, having that same mindset can be really, really beneficial to any business.
Adding to Gerald's point, one easy way to figure out whether to focus on, of course you want to focus on both, but mobile or desktop, is to just go into your analytics or your search console. And in analytics, you can look at users and device, and it'll break it down, desktop, mobile. If you're a B2C, chances are your mobile is 60% or more, sometimes 70 or 80%. If you're to B2B, a little bit more on the desktop side. Sometimes it flips, or it can be heavy on desktop. So check that out, because you want to really keep your user in mind. I agree, mobile first. We tend to, even from a design standpoint, tend to focus on desktop all the time, just because after 20 years of it being drilled into your brain, you're going to do that. But mobile first, and then also design and create content for how people are reading you. So Google Search Console will give you basically how people are finding you on search, and then what their devices are. Analytics will show everything, right? You can segment it per referral, whatever, or source, but it'll show everything. So also give you an idea like how people are reading outside of people that found you on search. And chances are to your point, that's usually mostly mobile as well.
Yeah, really good, especially for all those recipes. I guess you want that device that's going to come with you to the kitchen and get splattered in all sorts. Some more questions. We've got a great one from Atik. Should we start with a keyword gap analysis if I'm just starting out with a new website?
Yeah, that would definitely be a good way to kind of dictate what topics to write based on where the opportunities are, especially if you want to come in strong and really stand out with the competition. Just make sure that the content that you're producing, especially as a new website, is in depth. And that doesn't mean long word count. That means that you're actually satisfying everything there is to know about that topic with that post. So you come out of the gate very strong.
Yeah, one phrase. Oh, sorry, Joe. I was just going to say one phrase that I kept hammering into my team was the phrase genuinely helpful. Like, just try and be genuinely helpful what you're writing. Sorry, Gerald.
No worries. It's a great point, particularly, with Google Updates now becoming official. I think when you look at like helpful content, that's a really good point to make. I think the other thing I would also make, when you're doing a new website in particular, actually, but I think the entire industry needs to do this too. It's not just creating content for the sake of creating content. It's really about thinking about what is actually, as you say, Paige, truly genuinely unique. Because I think the problem here is there's so much noise online. As Laura mentioned, actually, we have like a default thing, this happened 15 years ago, keep doing it. I think we're actually in an information age now where things in our industry are going to change massively. So one thing, for example, mobile is going to do is completely remove backlinks from the algorithm at one point. That's to say, who goes on a mobile phone and creates a backlink? We don't do it. Web developers do on laptops and desktops. And critically, that's actually going to completely, as a device, change how Google's algorithm and all the other algorithms are actually calculated, which is why we're going to see, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years, a huge step change on how we actually rank websites. But in answer to your question, when it comes to picking keywords that you haven't actually written about before, definitely think about the themes that you want to become known for. Do your research in relation to those themes. And critically, the most important metric you can be looking at is keyword difficulty. What we mean by that is basically, are there consistent rankings in the top positions that the search engine results page never changes in all of those collections that you get those keywords for? If that's the case, it's more likely that that keyword is going to be much more difficult to rank for. That's to say that, the search engines picked an asset and consistently ranked it in those top positions. So there's much smaller chance for you to climb up those ranks.
One thing too is that when you're launching a new site, you always don't want to go after the home run, right? Just going I'm not, if I launch a pork chop site today, I'm probably not going to rank for pork chop in 3 months. But utilizing, going back to Ashley's presentation and utilizing things like the SEMrush topic research tool and really breaking down in the topics means that if you're creating that topical hub or that channel on the site all about a specific subject matter, and you're hitting that sweet spot, not the super high volume terms at the top, not the ones in the bottom, like it's like Goldilocks, right? Not the ones at the bottom that no one's like hitting, but the ones in the middle. That sweet spot is a lot easier to hit. And then as you're climbing over time, more people are coming to it. Your site's getting more developed. Your site's becoming a topical hub for that subject matter. Therefore, down the road, you're going to see that gradual climb to those terms that do have the higher search volume. So don't give up, but think of it as like, don't think of it as, hey, I want to rank number 1 for pork chop. I want to rank number 1 for CBD. Or I want to rank number 1 for whatever it may be. Think of it as, I want to rank for what I'm able to, but focus on that topic. Therefore, over time, you should be able to achieve that once everything else is accomplished with building your brand.
Such great advice. Really, really good advice. And one of the examples I like to use is car insurance. Like if you launched a website tomorrow and was like, I'm going to rank for car insurance, you're not, to start with. It's like the most competitive term ever. But as a business, what's your USP? Why are you going into this market? What is your niche that's going to make you stand out? And start there. That's the Goldilocks spot, is your USP as a business, which often we can forget about. Like, what makes you special?
Mm-hmm.
Fab. And I think this segues quite nicely into another question from Atik. Is keyword gap analysis and content gap analysis the same thing?
As essentially, and I'll chime in on this one, it's essentially the same thing, but it can be used for 2 different purposes. So in my example, I was using it to create new content ideas and to identify where competitors are very close but aren't ranking yet. A keyword gap analysis is going to be the same concept because it's going to identify keywords that you could potentially be ranking for, but it's going to be up to you as the brand or as the agency managing the client's brand to identify which keywords are going to be relevant and actually worth including. And it's the same concept for generating new topic ideas and identifying competitor strengths and weaknesses. It's great to have a list of 100 new keywords that you want to target or 100 new topics that you want to target, but maybe only 20 of those would actually make sense for your brand to publish content on.
Yeah, great advice. Sorry, Lauren, you can chime in.
Oh, I just wanted to add that content also comes in many forms, right? So again, this was in the presentation with images and auth attributes and everything else. Images are so much more important than they used to be with Google. Unique images, uniquely helpful or genuinely helpful. What was it, genuine or uniquely helpful?
Genuinely helpful
images that are unique from what everyone else is utilizing out there. Also, Google image search has become a hybrid between product search and image search, right? So if you're selling something, getting those unique images is even more important at the end of the day. And it's not just images when you, like, I'm sure everyone notices with some like tutorial oriented or tip oriented queries, it's all videos, right? So one component really of like a content audit is like, is that a blog post plus they have an embedded video? Is that embedded video that they've published on their own YouTube channel also ranking? Right? Is it in the results themselves, or how is that working for them and things like that? So in some instances, it may be worth expanding beyond the written word. The written word is always great for a core because it's the easiest thing really for Google to figure out at the end of the day. But if you can reinforce it with video and other forms of content, even like PDF takeaways, whatever it may be, that enhance people's lives and help Google figure things out more, like in terms of YouTube transcription and everything else, you've covered most bases then.
Yeah, love that. Genuinely helpful content in whatever form is best for your user. And I'm going to say something a little bit controversial potentially. Not all content should rank. Like if the content you're producing is to boost your EAT, it's to show that you're an expert or an authority in your thing. Think Martin Lewis, Money Saving Expert. Like whatever he's doing, he's just out in the press being awesome. Like if I had someone like that as like an author on my site, I'd be like, yes, amazing. But those press things aren't really going to rank traditionally, but you might get in Google News or Google Discover or generate backlinks. It all comes back to what Gerald was saying about KPIs for content. Like, don't create content for content's sake. It can rank, in which case content and keywords are the same thing, can multiple keywords for one piece of content. Or that's not its goal. It might not have the goal to rank. It might be for something else.
And then it actually brings us back on, Lauren, as well, like what you mentioned there about like formats of content and stuff. You know, the reality is if you even do create a piece of content and it ranks for an instant answer, it's highly unlikely actually that that instant answer for some queries like Joe Biden age is even going to drive you much traffic. 95% of people, when they do a search using that term, click on nothing, 0 clicks. Those things, again, it has going back to those KPI conversations. Yes, it can be about traffic. It also can be about awareness. It also can be about actually, I want to create a piece of content that's going to be gated. And it's actually only going to be consumed for people who are customers of my particular service. And that's really thinking differently about content too.
Love it. Love it. Now we're diving into what is content, really. Before we go down that rabbit hole, a question from Maharenda. Sorry if I butchered your name. We're removing a lot of blog content that's outdated since they're related to COVID or data that's outdated. Will that impact the website's performance if we remove them all? Have you guys been through this experience where the people are getting rid of their COVID content now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And most of the time, I mean, what I like doing, like my best practice is, I'm just saying because I don't want someone to go on Search Engine Journal and say something different. But what my best practice is, I typically look for other blog posts that are incredibly topically similar to what I just wrote or what you're taking down, and then redirect those to those posts, especially if they have any inbound links. With COVID, you may have something on your site, like if you're a brick and mortar store, you may have had something about like, point is, there's so many store sites or restaurant sites I go to, and I see that they still have this information about, masks and everything else, and old pages. They've continuously updated it on new URLs and everything else. So instead of taking it all off, you also might want to consolidate it, because what's happened, if you look at Google business profiles, I was about to say Google My Business, but Google business profiles, all of that safety and health and safety information is now on the Google business profile. So having a health and safety component of your site that correlates with the information that's in the Google business profile can be really important, in the same way that you want to have your address, opening hours, phone number, all of that match. So if Google's gone the direction of being, hey, everyone should have health and safety data points in basically your business's main footprint within Google outside of your website, then you should have a page on your website that addresses that as well.
That's really interesting. So are we potentially saying that alongside your cookies policy, your T's and C's, you should have health and safety, and maybe redirect and consolidate that content into that one?
If you're in brick and mortar, then yeah, I would definitely, I mean, and it also gives you a location to redirect all of that. That makes a lot more sense than redirecting it to a blog category, or, I mean, you don't want to do the homepage, obviously, but blog category, blog homepage, something like that. Having a health and safety thing on the site makes a lot of sense. So yeah.
Absolutely, and I agree completely with the consolidation of that content too. It goes actually hand in hand, actually, back to what Ashley was mentioning around links, many different types of links, but also it's a really good opportunity for you to link out even to a government website, which actually in this particular piece of content is one of the best links. Remarkably, here in Europe, you've got some countries like Italy, for example, that on public transport, you still have to wear masks, even though in all other circumstances, that's not required legally. So again, it's going back to that case of, although for the most part, this thing has been and gone for the most part, it's not away yet. But also I think, when you look at some of the big businesses out there, like some of the big massive banks, we've got like chief marketing officers. We now have chief medical officers. Again, this is going to be a big thing in the sense of, as a world and as people, we've never been more connected. And the reality is this is going to happen more frequently going forward. So keeping you an eye of what your customers need and want is always a good thing.
Can I just add one more? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lauren. One quick point that I thought of when you were doing your presentation as well, Ashley, in terms of link cleanup, is that in the United States, whenever there's a new government administration, so whenever basically the president changes hands, essentially if you link out to government sites, after that presidential transition happens, there's a very, very good chance that you're going to have a lot of external 404s, because what happens is the FDA updates all their pages, all of the State Department updates their pages. So we're linking out to those great, high authority pages as resources. Keep in mind, even mark on your calendar, after a presidential transition period, there's a very high chance that that's all going to be replaced. And very seldomly do the 301 redirect to the new source. They just wipe out the old stuff and then put in the new one. They just take off the old site off the server and then put the new site on, and that's it. Worst migration policies ever, but it can affect you if you're linking out to all those 404s. So mark that on your calendar every time there's an administration change in DC.
That's probably quite topically relevant for us UK peeps as well, because we're about to have a new monarch. So Her Royal Majesty's is now his. So we're probably going to see something similar for all people linking to government websites potentially, or like prisons or anything that's going to be, good tip for the people of the UK right now.
And remarkably, a little plug play, guys. Like, we have a very different methodology that hasn't been maximized. We are the only platform, from what I've seen, that actually knows that King Charles is actually an actual king, not a dog. So when you go on to SimilarWeb, you can actually see, because it's based on real user behavior data, it's actually contextualized to what's happening now.
Well, that's going to be a fun time for Google, the King Charles Cavalier resurgence. Oh, brilliant. So I realized, so we've got a big question from Melanie Hendricks. There's quite a few segments to this, so I'll start from the beginning. But I think it's about basically like snappy H1s versus keyword optimized ones. So I'd like to understand keywords versus copy. Huge brands focus on the former. Webflow's H1 is the site you want without the dev time, not really a key phrase. Gomro's H1, go from $0 to $1, not a key phrase. So is clever copy only the province of big brands? I meant to say that huge brands focus on the latter copy. Basically, what would you recommend in terms of these very unoptimized statements?
Yeah, going into my example with the topic research tool and turning those into headings, you notice that most of those are questions. And so you essentially remove the question mark, remove the what or the how at the beginning, and turn it into a sentence as a headline. Does that mean it's always going to include the keyword or the key phrase or just be pork chops? Definitely not. But people aren't just looking for pork chops. They're looking for, like Lauren's example, how to vent a stinky kitchen from baking pork chops. And it's these longer phrases. And that's where the topical authority comes in, and where it's so important to outline your heading structure into a pattern that makes sense. You don't want to talk about venting the smell from a pork chop before you talk about what the oven temperature needs to be, because they haven't even cooked it. It's not even thrown in the oven yet. So focusing on your heading structure, actually addressing questions people have, will allow you to write in a more natural language and have headings that not only address what the user is looking for and what they're asking, but would also make it more of like a natural language instead of just pork chop, air, vent recommendations, which is just, it's bland. It's not enticing. It's not going to keep me. I know I can go to that section of the article to get that information, but from a search perspective, it's not going to keep me on the page.
Yeah, 100%. And question and answer writing is so good for SEO as well. Like we talked about how you can't just put a piece of content up and it immediately rank. But check out the PAAs on that keyword, like car insurance. There's a load of people also ask queries that you might actually have a chance of just sliding in there and appearing on like a huge search volume query, just not in the same way.
Absolutely. And then thinking about what the searcher is likely to do next. So it's like, when they digest this piece of content, what other format of content can you do? So something like, for example, air conditioning units. You know, you got a really good piece of content. Maybe you've got a landing page, but actually it's maybe going back to that integrated search. It may be that on YouTube, for example, you want to do a thing of post pre-sales approach, where we're actually thinking about actually if someone actually buys this particular item, in this case an air conditioning unit, how do they hide one? How do you actually install one in a house, for example, through a window, through brick? Those things can be really, really meaningful at getting into the buyer's journey again of all those different phases in line with an engine and also the content asset or format itself.
Yeah, sometimes content, people will add FAQ blocks to kind of address those like pre and post questions. And then I've seen other writers do it without having the plugin and the actual FAQ block designated, but taking those FAQs and just removing the question aspect and just making them a structure. So you're still guiding them for that pre and post information. But I would definitely recommend testing the two different formats, because depending upon your target audience, some really love just the straight black and white FAQs, and they'll scroll past your fluff to get just to that section and get the info that they need. Whereas others love the story approach, and it keeps them on there longer.
Unless it's a recipe. You get that, like the life story, and you just want the ingredients list. Why is it so far down the page, Ashley?
Jump to buttons. Jump to buttons are great.
Sorry,
I'm a big fan of interactivity on the page as well, right? The jump buttons, the FAQ section, if you have expandable FAQs, and then there's a reason for that, just besides making it look cool and pretty. It's that you're getting someone used to interacting with your site while they're on your site. You're getting them to click buttons. You're getting them to do things. There's no science behind this, but there may be a higher chance if someone's clicking on your site and interacting with it, that they will fill in something like an email newsletter box, or they will click on an ad, or they will do something to give that visit more value for you. So if they're used to taking action to look into things, then chances are they may take more action on the site as well.
For sure. And I think last but not least, those H1s and those titles that you mentioned might just be on the homepage, which I don't know about you guys, but I've always just optimized my homepage for brand. I don't want it to work any harder than that. I just want it to be the home for my brand and the brand search. So you can get away with a little bit of some snazzy H's, because you're actually going to have that ranking content elsewhere on the site.
And top tip, I completely agree, Paige. Your homepage should be your About Us page as well. Don't have an About Us page. Like, literally make that your homepage. That is actually how you formulate a content strategy with the homepage, which typically a lot of brands scratch their heads and go, what do I write here on my homepage? Write about you. What is your home all about? And that's exactly what you can do.
Absolutely. And check out the previous sessions recording, because that was all about, like, don't use unsubstantiated marketing claims. Like, your homepage is a perfect place to be putting all that stuff, like why you are so good, what is your USP, look at all these cool things people said about you. I got a really cool question from Jean Gerwin or Jean Joan. It's like Sean Bean or Sean Bean. I'm so sorry. I've been out of the industry for about 5 years. What would you say are the biggest changes since 5 years ago? And I think the content angle on this is particularly fun. Ashley, do you want to go first?
Yeah, everything a little bit. Like, a whole lot's changed in 5 years. I think the biggest takeaway is mobile, how people are digesting content. Some of the most successful pieces of content that I'm seeing that are outranking other really great pieces of content, or what used to be great, have multiple different formats. And this is something Lauren's echoed throughout the session, is I'll see, right away they have the imagery, they'll have the bullets or a couple of the short intro paragraphs, they'll have a longer form video, which longer form could be 3 to 5 minutes. We're not talking about an hour. They'll have a longer form video, they'll have more body of text, then they'll have another shorter video that's only 30 seconds, then they'll have the final content, the call to action, whatever the conversion path is. That is very difficult to do if you're producing content on a daily basis. And 5 years ago, it was all about producing content on a daily basis. It was producing all the content you possibly can and getting everything out there. Now it's more about producing content that is really fleshed out and complementing all of your different types of users. Not one brand has one type of audience. We have multiple different personas. So one persona is going to go straight to that 30-second video, get what they need, love it, and either continue onto the conversion path or not. Another is going to appreciate that 3-minute video, and that 30 seconds isn't enough, and they're going to want to read a little bit too. If you have all of that fleshed out on a piece of content, you're going to make sure and satisfy all of your personas and give them more of an experience with their content versus here's 2,500 words. I wish you luck if you can get to the bottom of it.
Brilliant. Speaking of 30 seconds, we have about that. Gerald, Lauren, anything to add? Last 5 years, biggest change?
Definitely mobile. I completely echo Ashley, and EAT. The content and the quality of content is the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah, EAT, and then having the schema backup for everything that you do, so you can communicate to Google instantly. They don't even have to crawl the site to figure it out, what this page is about, who the author is, who reviewed this piece, what their background is, all of that information. Just make it easier for Google, and schema is a great way to do so.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. And that's all we have time for, I'm afraid. Thank you so much. Ashley, Gerald, Lauren, you've taught us so much about content today. I've got my lovely new people joining. I'm going to be passing over to the fantastic Ben Fisher, who's just joined as the next session's host. So I will leave you all to it. Thank you all so much. Have a great next session.
Gotta love these virtual sessions, right? And we are live, by the way. I'm just saying. All right, so I'm gonna get us going. Hi, Joy. Hi, Crystal. Hi, Claire. You are all amazing. Thank you so much for coming today. We're just gonna be dropping knowledge bombs on everybody. So let's just kick it off here really quick. So what we're gonna be talking about is probably local SEO. I would think we're going to be talking about local SEO today.
You better be.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. I mean, we could always talk about the color of the sky. I mean,
Yeah.
This works sometimes, but probably won't help people out so much. So we'll probably stick with local SEO. So we're going to be dropping knowledge bombs left and right. Top SEO experts are here. And, at its core, we're going to be talking about how agencies can really benefit from offering Google Business Profile services and local SEO. But we're also going to be kind of talking about what the pitfalls of that are too, because let's just be honest with each other in this room. There can be a ton of little pitfalls that come with offering anything that has to do with Google, local specifically. With that, I think what I want to do is I want to kind of go around the room, right? We all work with GBP in one way or another. And so we are going to start off with the lovely, awesome Joy Hawkins, the Miss Queen of Local Search, my mentor, my friend. How are you doing, Joy? Good to see you.
Thank you, Ben. Good to see you too.
So you've had your agency now for going on, what, 6 years?
Five.
Something
5
like
years.
5 years. Okay, I'm jumping the shark there. All right, so 5 years. Before that, you were at Impresio, right? They were doing a little bit of GPP, well, a lot of GPP stuff actually in the insurance industry. So you moved into your new agency. Why don't you talk a little bit about the struggles that you saw when you were at Impresio, and also kind of what you're doing now with GBP? Because if I recall correctly, you're doing some pretty interesting stuff, how you've mixed it into your agency.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I had at the agency I worked at before I started my own was they were big on scalability. So they wanted things that they could kind of repeat and do the same across multiple clients, that we could, train new people on easily, people that didn't have lengthy SEO experience. And I think there was a lot of challenges with that because frankly, SEO is hard. And if you're a beginner and you're learning, one thing I gotta kind of say for sure is that cookie cutter approaches don't generally work too well, especially across different industries, but also across different geographic areas. There's just so many nuances to it. So although I think some of the processes they had were good, they were really big on we want a cookie cutter approach. And then when I started Sterling Sky, I was like, no, I want a custom approach. I want to start every client by doing a really thorough, in-depth audit and coming up with an action plan based on that business and what they're currently experiencing and what they're doing well versus not doing well. And I think that's kind of the thing that I feel like a lot of people that tackle local SEO don't seem to get. Like they want the cookie cutter scalable approach. I actually hate the word scalable, so we don't use it at my agency. I don't like it. I think that scalable is a term that should apply to technology and things like that. But when you're dealing with people, which is what SEO is, you're dealing with people, right? Like all of the good that comes out of Sterling Sky, it's the people that we have working there. They're collective brains. So I have a hard time understanding how you scale people.
I'll get to that. But no,
I think
you're
quality, right? Like that's what
Yeah.
we always put first. It's like, did the stuff that we do actually result in more leads and business for our clients? Like that's the main
Exactly.
question you should be asking. And if you're not looking to make sure that that actually is working, and you're just assuming that the same thing is going to work for every single client, you'll probably be disappointed.
I think that, and great points, Joy. And I think that there's two sides to the coin, right? And I think it all comes down to customer expectation. And if you're not offering local SEO and you're not offering GPP services right now, you're probably not a expert when it comes to local SEO, right? You can do things, mechanical things. And so the two sides of the coin are this. There is the client or the customer that comes to you and says, I must get better rankings. What can you do for me? And that, of course, is going to include an audit. It's going to include pay-per-click, of course, right, as well, because that's going to bring you sales. And I mean, as we all know, it's like GPP. There's only a couple different little levers that you can really pull to help with ranking a lot. However, there is the flip side of the equation, and it's a very large and I think underserved market, and it's the market we serve. So of course I'm going to say this. And that is the market that is basically looking for somebody just to manage their presence. They're not necessarily saying, oh, hey, I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars to manage my GMB, and that's going to all of a sudden make me number one, right? That's a wrong fit. That's the wrong customer for somebody who does want a scalable type of service. If somebody's like, hey, I want you to be number one, and also I'm going to pay you a couple $1,000s a month, then that's when they come to somebody like yourself, Joy, where, it's like a full audit and you're getting deep and straight into the weeds versus it being a cookie cutter approach to it. And what I have seen is that, let's just be real. The majority of agencies that are out there are smaller boutique agencies. They are 1 to 2 people usually, and they can only handle X amount of customers. So to do a full SEO service is all kind of unrealistic because they're going to cap out at around 25 customers, if that, even that's kind of stretching it. But if you want to grow and you want to have a scalable business that's actually profitable and not just lifestyle, then at that point you either need something that is replicatable, that is scalable, that is kind of templated, or you need to outsource that to somebody else who can actually do that piece for you. So with that being said, what I want to do is I'm going to move on to the wonderful Claire Carlisle. So Claire, you're with Bright Local. You still have your own agency, right?
Yeah. Okay. I'm one of those boutique agencies that you just mentioned.
Yes. And GPP is very, very, very much at the core of what you do, obviously. So talk to us a little bit about your strategy and how that works for your business. And also how do you think it can work for other agencies?
Oh, so I'm obviously working at Bright Local part of my time, and then part of my time I service my existing customers. It's been interesting in terms of, and again, not using the word scaling, but understanding how much time I can spend working with the clients that I want to work with. So I think I'm probably not the best person to advise on this just because I've taken a very different path, but my priorities are really just working with great clients that have a reasonable budget. I can only service a few people, at a time in terms of ongoing services. But one of the things that I really enjoy is like one-off consultancy pieces. So coming up with strategy, looking at auditing. So that's another way that you can scale your services if there's only one of you. So rather than thinking I'm going to do all these little bits, I'm managing someone's GBP, you actually sail in and say, this is what you need to do. This is what internal resource you need. And this is what you can expect to get out of it.
Right. But of course, the drawback to doing the consulting piece, while it is enjoyable, It doesn't have that recurring component for the agency, right? And it's a key portion to growth. You know, I mean, your case is of course different because you're working with Bright Local. So
yeah. But also, you know, it's like in terms of taking on project work, it doesn't just need to be, you know, it can work in sprints. So you're working with someone for 6 months, for 9 months, for 12 months, and then you're training an internal team. So I know quite a few people that run small agencies in that way. So it does depend on what type of agency you want to build.
very true. Very true. That's actually a really important piece right there, is understanding the kind of agency you want to build. Do you want to be that agency that says, I offer a smorgasbord of services that is this long of a list. I do everything from branding to PR to link building. You're obviously an expert at everything if you do that. You know, or do you want to niche? Do you want to niche in, niche down, and really be good at what you do? So the amazing Crystal Horton. Thank you, Crystal, for joining us. What do you think about all of this? I mean, I want to hear your perspective. I think it's gonna be very unique.
Oh, okay. I like to take the audit approach for reviews and do a specific review audit to see what your clients are currently saying about your services. Then connecting with the customer to see if that's really what they want, if that's what they're looking to attract. Then from there, I like to do a little bit of some keyword research to make sure we put the two together. If these type of reviews and this type of audit doesn't necessarily describe their ideal client, but we also get to see what type of keywords they're ranking for based off of that. So then we restructure or we enhance if it works out.
I love the fact that you're leading off with that one component, which is looking at reviews to improve a business. Right, because that's actually a hardcore deliverable that you can give. It's not a ranking deliverable. It's a, hey, I'm going to help you improve your business deliverable. So I really like that approach actually a lot. So just a little bit of housekeeping. So now that we've answered those two questions, thank you everybody. What we're going to do is this is what we're going to cover next. So that way you have a reason to actually hang out, by the way, with us. I'm just saying. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over a little bit about measurements. What kind of measurements, what kind of expectations can you give to your clients that's going to make them stay around forever and absolutely love you and not come back to you and say, well, why didn't X and Y happen? Oh, well, we talked about Z. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go over a little bit of like some of the recent things that are happening in local SEO that you just do need to know about now. Joy has some really amazing stuff to talk about, some fluctuations that are being seen in the industry. And we're also going to talk a little bit about what's going on with reviews as well in the GPP space. And from there, we're going to touch basically based on some of the presentations that happened at local university in Denver. And from there, we're just going to kind of have an organic conversation. So let's start it off with Claire. Let's talk about measurement and reporting. And then I want to follow that up with Joy, because Joy, you had a really interesting way of doing measurement and reporting, but I think you recently changed that, if I recall. So lead us off, Claire. Come on. It's all you.
All will be revealed by Joy in a moment. I jotted some thoughts down about this. So if you're thinking about offering Google Business Profile services and you're already an established you have an SEO offering already, I think it is worth thinking about and knowing that you're going to be plowing into a lot of different data sets for the type of data that you need to be reporting on. And then depending on what data you use, it operates slightly differently when you are looking at local. So I'll just run through what I mean by that. So one of the things is if you're looking at rankings, ideally, rankings are important, but ideally you're not reporting on those to clients. But if you are using rankings, you're going to need to use different tools so you can be very granular. And then if we think about what you're reporting on and what type of client you're working with, I work with a range of clients. So some of them are do it for me, some of them are do it with me, and some of them are teach me. So depending on what they are, I'll need to have different levels of the type of information I'm giving them with regard to reporting and measurement. So we've got a Google Business Profile. Obviously, a lot of the action and the stuff that is important to the client exists there. You've also got analytics. So if we're thinking about GBP, we're making sure that we tag up all of the links from the business profile so we can see what actually happens on the website. So we're talking about demonstrating our value as marketers. We're also thinking about testing and rolling things out and maybe securing more budget. And we're also thinking about what information we actually need to give to the client. And I think Joy, well, everyone will have something to say about this, but Joy and I spoke about this recently in terms of what does the client actually need to know? Well, they need to know what the return has been and what has actually moved the needle. So don't just give them all of this stuff. Make sure that if you've got a massive dashboard of information, it's useful for you as a marketer to understand what's working and what isn't. The other thing that I was just going to say about SEOs, one of the things that we use, and this is something I was looking at the other day, we use Google Search Console to help us to understand low-hanging fruit. So if we're looking at, what has impressions but not a lot of clicks or whatever, we sit there and we look at that. But the thing is, if we are tracking our local listings, then Google isn't including impressions of listings in the 3-pack. So the types of sort of tactics and strategies that we use as general SEOs don't necessarily translate over into local SEO. So it's just another thing to think about. So those are the things.
Very true. And the most frustrating thing, and I think this has been with SEO for 30 years, is that at the end of the day, if you're spitting out this report that has these metrics and these graphs and data from Google Search Console, data from analytics, data from God forbid GBP insights, the customers are still going to look at them. They're going to be a deer in the headlights and go, so what?
Mm-hmm.
My calls didn't increase this month. So what have you done for me lately? I'm just kind of curious. It's actually usually not that nice. So with that being said, Joy, let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit about your agency, what you've done in the past and what you've learned.
Yeah. So as far as reporting on value to clients, we do it a couple ways. First is the graph they want to see is leads, right? So that's our opening page on our report. Have your leads gone up this month? And sometimes it's cool to see trends month over month, but we also have some seasonal businesses where some months are nuts and some months are really low. So it's really nice to compare year over year, but just leads, phone calls, form fills, chat's a big one. A lot of small businesses still don't have chat on their website, and that's a huge missed opportunity for tracking, but also just connecting with more customers. So, are those numbers going up? Which pages are those numbers coming from, right? We've had lots of clients where if we were just looking at traffic, it would really skew where our priorities went, because there's some pages that get tons of traffic. I think it was, we had a plumber electrician that I was looking at the other day, and their number one page traffic wise is can you have a shower when the power's out? It's yeah, a lot of people are asking that question, and it's great that they rank for it, but these are not people that are necessarily going to be looking to hire an electrician.
Right.
So being able to distinguish that, I feel like I see a lot of SEO reports where it's oh, your organic traffic's going up, and it's cool, okay, that's good. I'm not saying it's not good, but is it the right traffic? As far as which metrics I look at beyond that, I feel like this is maybe not a common approach, but I love to look at screenshots. So we actually have a process here where when we're optimizing a page, I actually tell people search some of the main keywords, take a screenshot, and then after you're done, take another screenshot. And I'm does it look different? Did we actually move up? Are we actually improving what we thought we were going to improve? So screenshots I feel are really helpful for showing as well to customers, hey, this is where you were, this is where you are. And then that should translate into traffic and leads. And then for what keywords to target, Google Ads data trumps everything. If you've got Google Ads accounts running, this is where you get value from all that money you give Google, because it'll tell you what keywords actually draw leads. Outside of that, second, I would say, is actually Google Business Profile queries. So search queries inside Google Business Profile listings, which most big companies don't even know exist.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, it's in the API now, right? It just got added.
Still not in the API. I wish.
Okay. Heard that from Yext, so I don't know if it's coming, but
it might be coming in the next release. The next release is right around the corner, so it's possible.
Fingers crossed.
I hope so. Oh my God.
Yeah. So maybe I think it's coming. I don't know. I was told by a pretty reputable source that it's coming.
We're gonna have to ask.
Yeah, search queries are super powerful because they don't Search Console is the worst out of all the places to look for keywords. The keyword data in there is so wrong, missing so much, reporting, like under-reporting on things. Search queries are a little better inside Google Business Profile Insights because at least they are unique to the user. So it's not like picking up as many rank trackers, or, you know, like Claire mentioned, mobile traffic doesn't even show up. Like searches on mobile don't even show up in Search Console. So getting used to looking at that data, I feel like is a bit of a stretch for people that are not normally in the dashboard all the time, like you and I, Ben, obviously. But,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and you know, and on that note, and by the way, you know, Joy, you just need to kind of take your mic and go like this, just saying. But I don't know, you probably can't do that. No, but no, seriously, that was some great information. It was great fire, is what that was. And I agree. And my only thing that I can even come close to adding to that right now today is going to be a little bit more about the performance data from GBP. So, you know, when you go into GBP, you've got the GBP Insights, which Insights has always been wrong. You know, it's junk data. And it's going away sooner than, hopefully sooner than later. But when you go in there, click on the seed performance data, because that data is actually raw. It's real data. Most of it's updated actually in real time. So, but from there, you can take a look at things that do move the needle for your customer, and you can do a month over month, and you could do a year over year comparison, which is really cool. And, you know, you can look at calls, you can look at directions, you can look at messages. These are all conversion factors. And then, like Joy was saying, you can look at the queries. And again, this is raw data. This is actually how people are finding you. I had to use it the other day when we had a client who had an issue with basically they thought they had fallen completely off of maps. And I was like, no, you're right here. But they're like, but we're not being found for this key term. Go into performance data, take the key term, emulate the location. Really? You're not showing up for that? Oh, well, what are you doing here then? Turned out to be that their employee was looking at it from a different county. Anyway, so but yeah, it's all very good data, and it's actually it's actionable data. It's something that the client can look at and be really happy to actually see, and they're going to understand it. Especially if you join that with the percentages that you can see difference on, like, you know, mobile and desktop, which is also in the performance data. So that's really handy too. So
just on that, Ben,
yes,
just on the move from insights to performance, there's some metrics that are missing, which make me a bit sad, which is a breakdown of where your driving directions requests are coming from. That's really nice. And we're losing that data. Can you fix it, Ben?
no. As a matter of fact, I'm in the camp that's actually really happy it's going away. You know, we had a very intense discussion with Google about this, actually. And it really came down to one question. Okay, so what do you use that data for?
Well, my attractions use it to understand, you know, a relative where their people are traveling from. So it was quite useful to back up data for where should we be targeting ads, or where should we be leaving flyers, or where should we be doing local radio. So it is actually quite useful.
Yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, I can't say whether it's going to be coming to the new Insight performance data or not, but yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath, I guess is what I say. That's all I can say about that. No, but so Crystal, over to you. What about you? What are your thoughts on all of this mess of stuff?
Well, I think sometimes it's really hard, especially when you have a client that comes to you that they've trained themselves, right? I check Google Search Console, or what is that? So Google Analytics too is another one that's often pulled up, but they're just looking at all users, or it's going straight to Google Business, and that's how they're making decisions based off of how they know how to navigate through insights. So we kind of take a different approach, more of a customized, where we meet them where they're at. We start looking at what their goals are. A lot of the time it's, how on earth can I get my phone to ring, or my phone call stopped, you know, that kind of thing. So then we start looking and digging into seeing how they look at the data, and then readjusting and retraining over time so that they understand this is what we need to be looking at.
Over time is the key
Yes.
phrase right there, because retraining somebody on how to look at keyword rankings is to looking at ROI is.
Yeah. I do like, so Joy, like your idea of the screenshots, because sometimes there's those clients that call in a panic of, I'm drinking coffee, searching all my keywords right now. And then you get some different data from that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, cool. So with that, Joy, you have some interesting ripples that you've been seeing in the local search forum recently. So tell us a little bit about what's going on. What are you starting to see here?
Yeah, just some stuff went crazy over the weekend. So we are getting a lot of traction on this one thread that's posted over at the local search forum talking about ranking drops for service area businesses. So what's interesting, what I love about the forum is that like when you start to see tons of people all saying the same thing, you know there's something going on, right? Like it's not just you. Sometimes we get threads where it's like, no, it's just you. But this case, it's like a lot of service area businesses specifically. So listings that don't have addresses on them, like, you know, plumbers that work from home or, you know, like a lawn care company, for example, they're seeing drops like where they just fall off completely, like they're ranking and then they're not ranking anywhere whatsoever, like not page 1, page 2, etc. All the different, you know, industries, the one thing in common that they have is they are all service area businesses for the most part. One of them said they did something yesterday where they went into their listing and added their address back, and instantly within like an hour, the rankings came back. So there is something going on. I couldn't tell you what, but I have seen this before. So we had this happen years ago to a client. It was actually back in the days of Mapmaker, so I'm really dating myself here. But we added his address back, and literally, like, boom, he popped up, and it was crazy. I was like, my mind was blown. I'm like, that shouldn't have that impact. Like, why is that doing that? Haven't seen it in a while, but there's some theories on that thread, like maybe the Kansas bug is back. So these businesses are ranking in Kansas instead of where they're supposed to be ranking. So some people are seeing that with some of their listings. So I guess if you have a service area business and you're experiencing this stuff, feel free to head over there and chime in on the thread, but don't panic. You're not alone. And if it is a bug, I'm sure Google will fix it, as they usually do.
In put that in time.
Yeah, in their
like,
timeline, not yours.
Yeah, like how long has the Kansas bug been around now? I think it's we're extending out over a year.
It was like fixed though, and then like this is like a whole new batch. Yeah, I don't know. They obviously didn't patch whatever it is that causes it. I don't know.
Somebody threw it out on Twitter actually that they were seeing a bunch of businesses that were supposed to rank in New York and now they're ranking in Kansas. So it looks like we're going to have to go tell our friend what's going on here.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a different theory, and I've been kind of thinking this for about the past 2 years, and I've been predicting it for at least the last 1 year. But I think there's going to be some major changes to how service area businesses are handled by GBP and maps. You know, we've seen the new kind of local categorical finder, you know, that has the ability to sort by service areas. So that's kind of been, it's been hit and miss as far as a rollout goes. It's not 100% as far as it's going to be an actual feature, but I mean, it's so detailed. It's kind of crazy to think it wouldn't be. And, you know, maybe, again, these are all just, it's guesses more than anything else, but maybe there's something coming down the pipe where they've actually figured out how to separate SABs from storefront rankings. And maybe that's part of this. Who knows? Maybe it's just a test. Then again, they could just be messing with us.
2 algorithm updates going on, right? There's the helpful content update last week. Then there's the core update that's like rolling out as of this week. And one thing I do want to put out there that I feel like a lot of people don't realize is those updates do impact local results. So people seem to think that it's like organic only, and that is not how it works at all. So that definitely could be at play here as well.
Yeah, organic absolutely impacts local 1000%. We had a client actually, as soon as the helpful content rolled out, we only had one client get affected, which was kind of cool. But because like nobody's seeing anything happening. And it turned out that they did have a ton, all of their pages on their site were plagiarized from other websites. And also all their other pages were keyword stuffed. to the gills. Like literally, it was like, locksmith, locksmith, locksmith kind of stuff. So, so if anybody, they deserve to probably be hit by that helpful content update. So maybe it is part of that. It's always possible. So I don't know, Claire, Crystal, do you have any thoughts on what Joy is talking about as far as SABs?
I don't work with any at the moment. I'd be really interested to see what happens with the actual use of service areas, because in the olden days we used to like mark what was the circumference of the circle that we would serve, and then it was service areas, and clients thinking that if you add a service area of the world, then they're going to rank all over the world. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what a service area is, and when you actually verify the business listing, that's the address, that's your pinpoint, isn't it, for your so yeah, interesting what's going to happen with that, because it's not really very fair for a good service area business to be penalized and not to have the visibility in the map. So it would be nice if it was a bit of a more level playing field for like proper good businesses.
Yeah. So we have 2 questions we want to get to really quickly. So the first question comes from Melanie Hendrixels, and I hope I got that right, Melanie. And that is CPC a good proxy for organic keywords with local buying intent, or is the top page bid low and or / high a better proxy, or is it something else?
I would say that intent, I'm not a paid person, but intent comes from analyzing the intent of the keyword rather than the cost per click. So I'd be looking at and analyzing at a keyword level what we think it is, and then I'd be looking at the SERP for that keyword to understand what Google believes the intent is. So nothing to do with CPC really.
Yeah,
I agree.
I was going to say the same thing. Look at the search results. If there's a 3-pack, then there you go. Google thinks it's local intent. They usually get that right.
Yeah. I mean, a higher CPC is really going to translate more into how many other people are trying to bid on this term. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's a lot of people actually looking for that term. So unfortunately, that is extremely common. So the next question we have is from Jason Broussard. So Jason's asking, how long does it take Google to address GMB, GBP suspensions? We've been waiting for nearly 3 weeks now. So I'm sorry, Jared. First of all, I feel for you. I understand where you're coming from. We deal with hundreds of these cases a month. However, because we deal with hundreds of suspensions a month at state demand, that means I can actually give you an answer. And that is currently right now, GBP is very backed up when it comes to customer support, especially in the reinstatement department. So what that basically means is the current wait time that I've noticed, this is not an official SLA from Google, but that I've noticed is between 15 to 22 days. So if you've been going on 3 weeks, if it's exactly 3 weeks, you'll probably be hearing back maybe tomorrow. And that's when you're going to get your determination. So be patient, and they should get back to you. If you do not hear from them in the 22-day mark, I would give it till at least the 30-day mark, just in case, because again, they are backed up. And then basically what you can do is you can reach out to support and say, hey, what's up, in a sense, quote unquote, do an appeal. And if that doesn't work, then you can always come to the community and we can see if we can find out if it's something that's stuck. But right now, I'm just going to say you just have to be, unfortunately, patient. Okay. With that, let us move on. And is there anything else that you want to talk about as far as recent things or things that are happening in the local space, Joy, that we have kind of missed so far? I mean, I'm going to go over the review stuff, but
yeah, nothing really substantial. I know that Google's starting to, sunset some of the COVID stuff, like attribute wise. And so I would expect the next thing that's probably going to go is like COVID posts. Those are still a post type, but not expecting those to be around very long. And then I know offer posts, if you do a lot of posts on Google offer posts, there's I think it's a bug. I don't know. I haven't really got a straight answer from Google, but they don't show up properly on desktop, but they still show up really well on mobile. So if you're wondering, like, where's my post? Why isn't it showing up? That's kind of a ongoing issue that I feel like we brought that up months ago, and I don't know why it's still around.
Didn't they move them to under updates?
On mobile, like they're moved. They have a tab, but like on desktop, for lots of people you search that have offer posts, you don't even see the offer posts anywhere. Really annoying, but I'm pretty sure that's a technical issue.
Sounds like it. As far as with GBP, I mean, I will bring up the one thing is that their GBP is still a hot mess when it comes to reviews. And unfortunately, I don't think it's a bug, and I don't think it's a dial that's turned up too high. It's just kind of, it is what it is. But the first one I will talk about, I think, is a bug. And this is going to be where brand new profiles are basically being firewalled from getting new reviews. Very, very, actually really horrible from a merchant's experience, because, if you're going to do LSA, well, guess what? You need 5 reviews before you can activate LSA. So there's that. And then you want to get reviews because you want to get to that first 10 reviews so you can start ranking pretty decently for your profile. So, but unfortunately, new profiles, new reviews can be firewalled anywhere from up to 3 to 6 months. If it is past that 3-month mark, you will absolutely want to come to the forums and tell us about it, so we can get a word from Google on when that's going to be lifted, or if it may be, hopefully just kind of kick them and get it lifted for you. The other 2 bugs that are going on with the reviews, one's called a new review ghost and one is called an old review ghost. So the new review ghost is basically when a customer has left you a review, they send you a screenshot and they're like, hey, I left you a review. And you're like, oh, I don't see it. Well, that means that either there's a problem with your profile or there's just a problem with that account or some other thing. Either way, the review is just being not filtered. It's just not showing up. Again, gather screenshots of these because you can reach out to support, which will be less than helpful usually, and ask them if they can find it. And if they can't, then you can always come to the forum, and then one of us product experts can go ahead and ask Google, see if they can find it. And the last one, which is probably the worst one of all of them, is the old review ghost. And Net Media Consultants, you go to support.google.com/business/community. That's where you find the forums. So, but the old review ghost, what's the problem with this is let's say you have 1,000 reviews and you wake up in the morning and now you have 800 reviews. This is what's happening. Obviously, that's a larger amount than probably usually go missing. But in that case, it's very difficult to get them back because Google would need something to really compare it with. And most people don't have anything to compare it with. So, but again, you can reach out to support. You can ask them what happened. They'll give you a generic response, more than likely, that just says, here's why reviews go missing. And, but again, you can come to the community if you really are running into a pickle like that. As far as I know, I think that's the major big bugs actually today going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, cool. So with that, Joy, I'm going to throw it right back over to you, because local you, Denver, it was a really great show. We finally got back together here after what was almost 3 years of not seeing each other in person. And so, so tell us a little bit about, lead us off with your overall thoughts and feelings on the event. You have an upcoming virtual in November. And what was your favorite session?
Yeah, well,
yours, of course.
You can't put me on the spot like that. I like that. Okay, so not my favorite session, but there was 3 that I took takeaways from that I thought would be more of interest to this audience. So first session was Lily Ray. Lily Ray talked about Google Discover, and I feel like this is something that the local SEO community doesn't really even know exists, because it seems like it's not a very local thing, but it actually is. Like, we've got, especially realtors, we've got a lot of clients that have a lot of traffic from Google Discover. If you're not sure, you're like, what the heck is Google Discover? If you have an Android, which statistically lots of people do, and you have your Android and you swipe right, there is a feed that's on there that basically is catered to you. So in my feed, I see nothing but board games and Mario Kart stuff and, you know, TV shows I watch and stuff like that. So it's very customized. And so if the person is interested in whatever it is that you do, so like if I'm researching stuff about moving, for example, that's when I would start to see like real estate blogs, things like that. So it's really targeted, really cool. And, you know, people ask like, how do you get that? Well, Lily Ray actually has some guides out. So you can Google like Lily Ray, Google Discover, and you'll see a bunch of her tips. Like she's got some really solid ones. But I think her main thing was like SEOs aren't even looking here or optimizing for Discover. And she's got a whole checklist of things to like optimize for. But one of the funniest things she said that I thought was really just awesome is like Google tells you in their Discover guidelines that you should not use clickbaity titles, but they did a whole bunch of testing and research on it. And guess what gets the most activity in Google Discover? Clickbaity titles. So she was talking about how basically when you're writing for Discover, you kind of, it's different than SEO where you're just shoving, you know, keywords in your title, hoping you rank for them, which is really fascinating. But that's the, you know, 1-minute version of her presentation. My colleague, Carrie Hill, talked about content, which is always a hot topic. And just basically, this is another concept that I feel like people don't seem to get in the local SEO space, but more is not always better. So cannibalizing your content, we see this all the time. We were even having this discussion the other day. If you have, you know, a lawyer client that wants to rank for 18-wheeler accidents or truck accidents, do you need 2 pages or 1? Like, that's the question, right? Like, because 18-wheeler is sort of a different keyword than truck accidents per se, but they're really the same thing. So it's like her whole presentation was basically that, you know, if you can, less pages about the same topic is usually better. And we've seen lots of cases where we've done that, where we consolidate crap that doesn't get any traffic or conversions. And most local sites that we audit have a ton of those, like a huge amount of traffic, pages, in their sitemaps that they're telling Google to crawl an index that get no traffic, no conversions. You need to deal with those. And then finally, my own presentation, which I'm definitely not classifying as my favorite, just to be clear, that would be very egotistical. I talked about reviews. We have yet to publish this anywhere because I'm speaking on it a couple times coming up in the future months. But we did a lot of tests around reviews in the last year. And my TLDR for my presentation is reviews do impact ranking, not shocking discovery by any means, but we did find that getting to 10 reviews on your listing gives you a ranking boost, whereas like if you jump from like 10 to 15 or 15 to 30, you will not see the same jump or ranking boost. So that magic number, if you're looking for one, if you've got a new profile, is 10, which I think Ben already alluded to. And then if you're trying to figure out like which reviews Google actually surfaces at the top, so when you search for your business and you click reviews, you know, sometimes they'll surface like these old negative reviews at the very top and it drives people bonkers. They're like, why is Google showing this old negative review? There are trends to those as well that we also tracked and monitored. So the main ones to keep out for are 3 things. Longer reviews will stick higher to the top longer. So if you've got a whole bunch of clients that are leaving, you know, 2-sentence reviews, and you've got one giant pissed off customer that leaves a rant that's 5 paragraphs long, your rant review is probably going to stay up longer than your positive reviews. The second point is photos. If you have a photo with your review, it'll stick way longer at the top. So quick tip is if you get some negative reviews or you get 1 or 2, email a couple of your clients that's left your reviews in the past and say, hey, can you go back to your review and edit it and add a photo? And it's like insane what happens. Like I had some like before and after showing like just literally the order flipped. It was crazy. And then the final, it was crazy. Like I was just like did not expect that. The final thing was local guides, and this one made me cringe, but like local guide reviews did tend to stay longer, like up in the top list than people that were not local guides. So it was just like, ugh. But those were the main things.
Right on. Yeah, no, we did that trick actually. You know, what I really want to know is like, for instance, does that trick affect the 3 which are featured? And I think the answer is no. But
it doesn't. Those don't change. Like unless you get one deleted or like, oh wait, Claire's. You guys
what do you got, Claire? What do you got?
They
No,
change
I'm
like
thinking,
years.
I'm just thinking, and I can't remember the words. So there's the 3 that you get, which are the Google selected ones, which are sort of Google tells us they're algorithmically generated. Okay. And then there's the other version, which is based on your most popular review topic, bubbly things. And I can't remember what they're called again. And it was sort of moving back and forth between the two. Sometimes on mobile, you always get it based on the reviewy bubble things. And then on a desktop, I'm seeing more this sort of Google selected. So I'm still seeing it moving around. And obviously, it is not super easy to influence it. You know, you can't just press a button and say it's these 1, 2, or 3. But if Google is basing, as you can imagine it would do, its algorithm on the number of times a similar word or theme is mentioned in reviews, then you need to set about getting more of those reviews with those types of attributes in them. So it can be managed and it can be influenced, but it's not at the press of a button. But you can look a little bit deeper into your reviews to understand common themes, common words, the nuance of reviews.
Yeah, Claire, the one you're talking about on desktop is the one I was referring to that I said doesn't change. We tracked one for a year and a half. A year and a half for a business. I checked it constantly. It didn't change. Like, it didn't matter how many new reviews they got, how detailed they were, how rich they were. Like, nothing changed that. I don't know how often Google updates it, but if I had to guess, I'd say once every 3 years.
I'm going to have a look because I've got
it was done by a third party.
I've got screenshots going back about 2 years for one business, and I just want to have a look to see if anything has changed.
The one thing that we did see changed it is we had one where one of the guys that was featured deleted his review, and that changed it. So, but I mean, how can you control that?
Right.
Yeah, those are crazy. I wish we could control them, but I don't think we can. All right. So now we're going to address some questions. So if you have any questions, please throw them into the comments area, peoples, by the way. Okay. So Brian Evans has a question. How do you deal with profiles that probably has been hit by the possum update? That wasn't like years ago. The dentist ranks #1 organic, but is not in the local pack unless you zoom in. Okay, dentist, that makes sense. They're #1 in local pack. Is there any benefit to adding the Google listing address to the description of YouTube videos and channel bio? That's a grilled cheese to pull apart. I'll start off with possum was years ago. And so I'm not sure why you'd be thinking about possum right now, unless maybe there's another dentist in the same exact category. That's possible. But they're not in the local, unless you zoom in.
I think if I'm understanding it correctly, they're referring to the filter, which is it came with possum. Like before possum, there was no such thing as a filter.
Right.
But the filter will filter out dentists a lot, actually, because they're so close together. So if you've got a dentist in the same plaza as you, or even across the street as you, that could be what's filtering you. That happens all the time. And there really isn't a permanent solution to it other than to, let me think, you could rebrand to try and include the keyword in your business name. That will help. I mean, it's one way, or move. We've actually had lots of clients move. I've gone to clients and told them you need to move if you want your traffic to go up. So I've actually run into this several times with a few lawyers, because they tend to be in buildings, like high-rise buildings, and there's 15 floors and 12 other lawyers in the same building, kind of thing. But it can happen if somebody's across the street. It's basically within 200 feet of wherever your pin is.
Exactly. And that's actually, I mean, believe it or not, that's something you can do, which is you can actually just move the pin. And sometimes that works. Sometimes. Yes, Claire.
Just wanted to ask a question about that Brian, this might help Brian. So if you're being filtered, and like the business that appears above you, is all that based on who's closest to a location measurement, or is that based on the sort of authority of the listing? Could he ever move out of the filter just by being better than everyone else?
No, it's
based
location.
it's based on relevance. So it actually
Okay.
changes based on the query. So for example, they could be filtered for dent. Let's just say it's in, I don't know, Fort Lauderdale. So they could be filtered for dentist Fort Lauderdale, but totally fine for emergency dentist Fort Lauderdale. So it's different based on the query, and it's whoever is the most relevant to that query that wins. It's a constant race.
Okay.
It's very much it depends
Okay.
scenario, which of course we all love in local SEO. Yes. All right, so let's see. And then his other question was, is there any benefit to adding the Google listing address to the description of the YouTube videos and channel bio? So I'm just going to come out and say this. Anybody who tells you that you can leverage other Google properties and it's going to help you rank is feeding you a line. No, the answer is sorry. Adding your address to YouTube and your channel bio is not going to help you. Adding it to a Google site is not going to help you. Adding it to Google Sheets is not going to help you. Sorry, I had to go on a small rant. But yeah, your answer is no. Anybody else have anything you want to add to that? Come on. You don't want to say that geotagging and EXIF data is really going to help you a lot? Also, another myth. Geotagging and EXIF data will not help you rank at all. All right. Oh, let's see. Yeah, Rich Keller says clickbait is only bad if somebody doesn't click. Fact, actually. So, okay, so we got 10 minutes to go. And let's see, what are we going to talk about here really quick? Let's see. All right, so, yeah, all right, we'll go with Byron. So, serve national, international clients. Should I designate a local service area or remove my address or something else? So the answer to there is this, is that the service areas are meant to be there based on your business model. It's not based on ranking. It's based on the business model. So in other words, let's say you have Brian's, Italian restaurant, and people come to you. So you definitely want to have your address showing. But let's say you also do deliveries. If you do deliveries too, then you would or could designate a service area. But again, it's only visual. It's not going to help you rank. So service areas can also cause and lead to suspension as well. So weigh that as a benefit or a risk, I should say. Is it worth it to go ahead and add a service area if you might get suspended? In my mind, the answer is usually no. But Joy, thoughts?
Yeah. So this is just video related, right?
Yeah, I don't know. They're asking, they serve a national, international client. Should I designate a local service area?
Not the video question.
Yes.
Sorry, I was still on the video question. So yeah, I don't have any, I would agree with everything you said. I don't have anything to add to that. I think it's based on your business model. And I think people just don't understand that this service area doesn't impact ranking. So it doesn't matter where you put your service area, really. If you put the service the entire United States, however, it's a good way to get your listing suspended, because Google's could be like, you don't qualify for a listing, so wouldn't do that. But it's not a big factor. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, and the rule there, just so everybody knows, is 2 hours normal driving distance from your point of verification. So if you're like in California, then obviously 2 hours is not going to work. You're not going to cover the entire state. So in the case of an international or national client, you really need to ask yourself, what's their business model? And do they need local presence at all? Really is what it comes down to. Do they have, I don't know if we're talking about overseas or if we're talking about, in the United States, but do they have an office in every single state? Most businesses who serve nationally, internationally, it's usually like, I'm a consultant and that's it. It's like I do consulting online per se, and, it's not even local. So they might not even qualify, for a GBP in the first place. So again, go back to the business model. And if they do serve multiple states, then they would need like a legal nexus and an actual office in those states to set up a GBP. You can't just set up a GBP at people's homes or, Regis's, etc. All right. Crystal, Claire, any thoughts on this question?
Not on that, but I have got a question for you.
Do it.
Just talking and thinking about eligibility of listings. So this, I'm going to say, what would you do in this situation? So say, for example, there is a business that is online only, and they're in some sort of retail category. Say, for example, they offer curtains, online curtains. But they also have a place where you can order online and then you could go and pick up your delivery. Now, if they set up Google My Business listing for that, then surely the category should be like warehouse or something, not curtain shop.
Correct.
So or corporate
office.
Or corporate office. So I see that quite a lot with online only businesses, like getting visibility via, because for me, that doesn't serve someone that is looking to buy some curtains, because they'll go, oh, I'd love a lovely pelmet and some beautiful sashes for my library. And then they'll curtains near me, and then they'll pop along and it's a warehouse. It's not a they can't go and buy anything. What would you do about that? Is it okay or not?
I've been talking a lot. Go, Joy.
Totally okay. Actually, we run into this with insurance companies, right? Like, let's say State Farm, for example, their corporate office is in Bloomington, Illinois, and they don't want their corporate office ranking for when people search for auto insurance, because you can't call the corporate office or go to the office to get auto insurance. So it would use the category, corporate office. So I'd say in your example, Claire, it would make no sense to use the curtains category, because you're not trying to rank locally. Your customers aren't coming locally. They're coming, nationally. Just keep in mind, if you use the warehouse category, you are not going to show up in, curtains near me queries for people near your office.
And as well, based on what you said, you don't want them to anyway.
Right.
They're just coming there to pick up.
This isn't just sorry, this isn't my client. This is just a situation about whether or not that is a bit of a spammy listing or not.
Okay.
No, if it's something that people need to get driving directions to, and it's a real staff location, then you're absolutely allowed. What you're not allowed to do is like where nobody's, supposed to show up.
Right.
And so like somebody that, sells flowers out of their home, but it's like nationwide and nobody comes there. They don't go to anybody. It's all virtual. That would not be allowed.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And then you can nuke it. So.
So nice of you.
So, all right. So Melanie, so let's see. Do you need to create separate site pages for every location on that an SAB works in? Hard to do this without duplicating content. Well, that's very true. Claire, you have something to say.
Oh no, I was doing a little head wobble. I was just enjoying it. But I do have some things to say, but I'm going to get Crystal to say something, because we need to hear her voice more.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'd say where Joy talked about what Carrie Hill, I think at Local U, Carrie Hill talked about this quite a bit, where if you're focusing on specific city pages or site pages to discuss what is specific about that area, so that it's not duplicating content and you're not doing the cookie cutter stuff that is just not popular anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, then again, it's like if you've got a SAB and you want to rank organically, like I was talking about earlier, for city pages, where you're not near, right? Then that's actually important. And you do want to have service/city pages that target those areas. Again, it gets really difficult as far as writing content. It's like you have to spin up an AI writing bot and be like, oh, it's going to rank, it's going to write all the best copy for me for all these location pages. No, you need a professional writer that can do something good, especially with the helpful content update. So
The fun fact about that, I talked about a Local years ago. I think, it was Colin that talked about it. We have a client that has a bunch of service area pages, like 20 something. All they do is swap out the city name on their service area pages. That's nothing else. Yeah. And they came to me for like 5 years ago, and I looked at them and I was like, these rank really well. I'm not going to touch them. And so we didn't really do much with them. And after the helpful content update, they're still ranking phenomenally. So
wow. Yeah.
Gotta love exceptions, not the rules.
Or I would just go in and I'd put FAQs, questions that are specific to the area that have to do with the keywords and those type of things, where then I saw a little bit of a difference when we took a dip with the helpful content, but then that seemed to kind of replace it.
Yeah. You know, and the thing though, I think, Joy, that you're bringing up there that's really important and people need to understand as agencies in general, right? Because we were talking about agencies here back in the beginning. And that is don't be afraid to experiment. Really, seriously, don't be afraid to experiment. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work. That's all. You know, your customer's not going to yell at you. Your customer's going to praise you if it works. So, like in a situation like Joy's talking about, it's working. Okay, so if it's working, if it ain't broke, don't fix it just because the entire dogma of the industry says it's against the rules, right? Well, guess what? Dogma can be wrong a lot.
A lot. Google says a lot of things they don't enforce too. So, you know, these best practices. Yeah.
I can tell you that a good friend of mine who used to work at Google that everybody knows, I'm not going to say his name, once told me about the percentage of information, which is disinformation that actually gets put out there, and it's pretty darn high. So I say experiment. Like, for instance, if somebody says an exact match domain is not going to help you, anyway, try it. I'm sure you'll be surprised. All right, so let's see. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So Nicholas has a question. Is it recommended to add Google Maps to a service area page? Sure.
If it's specific to that area.
Well, actually, I mean, if it's useful to the user, which it's not going to really be, but I guess
it's not going to help you rank if that's what the question is. I think that's what the question is, but no, it wouldn't really make a difference for ranking purposes.
Yeah, exactly.
It might make a difference for conversion if it's a nice visual map that shows someone this is where we serve in this area up till this line. But yeah, I'll just weigh in on the conversion side rather than the ranking side.
Yeah. So, and the last question we're going to talk about is just from T. Hi, T. You know, our local listing sites like Yes, etc., basically going to improve my website's organic results. Crystal.
It depends.
I
say yes, but really only if. Okay, so for example, we had this test where we started to create these citations because we were looking to move into a certain area using an SAB. So we used their city page, and then we also went through and got I think there were like 32 of those citations that you could apply for because you're an SAB and you don't want to show your address. Only at that time is when I did see that it helped the city page. But that was like one-off kind of thing. Anyone else?
I did one earlier this year on a test site that had like 0 links. And I went through about a year and a half of trying different link types and seeing exactly what they did. And I haven't published this study yet, but citations did appear to have an impact on organic and not as much of an impact on local, which was very surprising. So I didn't know what to make of that, but they did get some links from, you know, those listings that got created versus no links. So
and that's the key.
Granular.
That's really it. It's just like, am I getting a link, you know, basically, and that just like, you know, adds like, you know, a unknown percentage point to your link equity, quote unquote, over whatever you want to call it, right? Yeah, it's negligible at best. And you know, Olive brings up a great point. Yext, you're renting with Yext. Whereas somebody like Bright Local or even White Spark Services, you're not renting it, you own. Well, you have a username and password, let's put it that way. But yeah, it's a link. So a link is a link is a link. You know, it's not going to be. I'm not even going to say it. Screw. Never mind.
I've got another thing to say on that, and that's yes, because we're not always thinking about our own site's organic ranking. If we have a look at a brand name search, if any of those citations are actually sites that are going to rank for your brand name term, then it's really important that the information on those sites is useful. So it's going to help organically in many ways beyond just ranking your own site.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I would think over time though that those links might move off because you have more popular, relatable content links that are better to provide.
I mean, I personally, I hate citation links. I don't use them. The decline of citations helping in the SEO has been going down and down and down every single year. The only thing I still enjoy or I will use for clients is local citations, hyper local citations. Those do seem to move the needle a little bit, but again, it's, you know, if it's good for the user, it's good for Google, basically. So that's kind of my mantra and rule of thumb on it, at least. Okay, great. Well, I think we're at our end. So let's just do any last thoughts and how people can reach you. Crystal, let's start out with you.
You can find me on Twitter at I'm Crystal Horton, or you can find me at crystalhorton.com.
Excellent. Claire?
Oh, excuse me. You can find me on Twitter at Claire Carlisle.
Excellent. And also we can find you at Bright Local.
Yeah.
As well, right? Yeah. And okay, Joy, how about yourself?
My agency is Sterling Sky, so sterlingsky.ca, because I am Canadian. And then the localsearchforum.com, just localsearchforum.com, not the, sorry. And then on Twitter at Joyanne Hawkins.
And I'll throw one thing in there for Joy. You can also find her organization, localu.org. Which we are, I think all of us are actually part of that. And yes, we're looking forward to November virtual. Yay, November virtual. All right, cool. And then for me, everybody, your host, Ben Fisher. You can find me on Twitter. I'm always there, the social dude. My DMs are open. Yeah, I know it's an old handle. Okay, I just don't want to change
it. It's easy to remember. I like it, for the record. So you're fine.
So yeah, and then you can reach me, of course, at steadydemand.com. Also localmarketinginstitute.com as well. We have a webinar that we do there every other week, actually. So thanks everybody for coming, and have a fantastic week. Have a fantastic weekend. And if you need any help, reach out to any one of us.